I'm not used to taking up the entire top of the screen, but here we are, and
Hello.
It's because we have a consult today.
Hello. Doctor.
Doctor.
Doctors.
So it's clinic hours today, but it's my favorite kind of clinic hours, the one where I don't have to rely just on myself, that I get to share the load. And so I have Kate here with me today. And honestly, we're sorry that we're not streaming a role-playing session, but we have some special events coming up. And so today, it's just the two of us.
Just the two of us. No one else. Oh, wait. There's chat? We're live? There's people? We aren't just sitting here talking, facing this way for some way?
We're live.
What?
Weirdness.
Hi, nobody.
If you are nobody, then you are everywhere and nowhere. Hey, DJ Quiver, Erwin, and Requiem. We've got the party in the house, possibly also Splooey. We hope you're feeling better. I know that Splooey's been a little bit under the weather lately, so.
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss. The beginning and end of all chat. Weirdness is the alpha and the omega.
Yep. Oh, good to hear he's feeling better. Yay.
Oh, no!
No!
That's like the wrong outcome. Why would you do that? Why would you gift sickness to someone else? That just seems like a bad idea. A bad plan all around.
Yeah, don't recommend it. As a doctor,
Yes.
I don't recommend transferring of sickness.
Sharing is caring, Miss Rich. You're absolutely right. But sharing disease means that you have to take care of them.
This is like a perfect segue. I'm like, speaking of sharing and caring and sharing disease and unwanted things, we have these safety tools. I do not have them within reach, but...
Safety tools not in reach. Oh no.
Yeah.
Whatever shall we do? Ooh, I am noisy here.
Yeah, I feel like our settings seem bizarre. So we go to effects. I wonder if the exposure is weird because it's all auto, so.
Yeah, it's definitely not the exposure.
Really?
That's a little better.
Really? I feel like it was a good segue. Oh god, we're blue now. Cute. We're still grading. It's fine. Whatever. We're not going to win an award for highest def video.
Yeah, it just seems a little strange.
Yeah.
That,
It's possible that the camera's coming in at default resolution, which is like potato. Like there's all kinds of settings that might be. So, anyway.
Oh well.
Yeah.
I'll just be noisy. I mean, we're also not centered
Yeah.
in the camera. In fact, what's centered in the camera are books from the games that we have played.
Appropriate. Safety tools. Play, thumbs up, good to go. Pause, thumbs sideways. Hey folks, I need to let you know something. Thumbs down, stop. Hey folks, we need to break out of game, break out of character, and talk about something. That's right, you don't even need cards. You can use hand signals.
I mean, here we go. Turn on HDR.
Oh god.
And really blow us the fuck out.
I don't know about HDR.
All right. We'll just leave it like this. We'll just have to handle it. Coliseum hand signals. Well, I mean,
Not really.
You always get like those pedantic people who are like, when it was thumbs down, it actually meant that they should live.
Yeah.
It was thumbs up to kill them.
Yeah.
But whatever. Miss Rich, that's kind of part of why we did it that way. The play card is actually the card that sees the most use for us. And I've actually found it to be very useful because if I'm being very honest, I am the sort of person who is always wondering like, oh, they say they're okay, but are they okay? Right? Jazz hands. Spirit fingers.
Yeah.
You didn't miss anything. We were kind of just getting started. Saying hi to people. Archon, it's always good to have you here. Honestly, the green card is for the method actors. Green card is for everybody. Even if you're not flashing it constantly, the the reason why the green card is so good is because it gives you an excuse to handle the tools.
Yeah.
And even if somebody isn't flashing the yellow card or the red card, if I flash a green card with like a
Yeah.
and nobody else flashes it,
Yeah.
or if somebody flashes it but it's very clear that they're like,
Yeah.
then I know that there's a thing that I got to deal with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The play card doesn't involve an interruption, which I enjoy.
Speaking of not interrupting gameplay, perhaps that's a good segue to the first question that folks dropped into our Discord, which is, how much does performance, as in acting voices, etc., impact the play experience at the table? That's right, because sometimes you want to do things in character.
So here, let's just
Whoop.
pop it in here. So we're weird. All of us attended theater school. All of us took at least one performance class.
We had to. It was mandatory.
You only did the one, right?
Yep.
Because some people do two and then they stop.
Yeah, you had to take two, a total of 5 classes from three departments, sort of thing. There's performance design and development. So yeah, thank you for queuing those up, Erwin. We will hop into those as we go. So I'm gonna hop in here because as players, if we have any sort of performance, acting voices, etc., it's usually one choice for the whole campaign. But I will say on the recipient end, being able to differentiate between NPCs is very useful. But I think that our current campaign, and to some extent even our first campaign of Exaltwitch Nexus, didn't have heavy accent use from John. I feel like there were some other campaigns in the middle where there was a lot more of it. But with Montreal by Moonlight at the moment, I feel like it's just Guy who has the French accent, and the occasional like special guest star peripheral character who is has some other sort of accent, but I'm still able to tell all the characters apart. So it's definitely not something that you need to have mastery over as a storyteller, as a game runner. You can just choose a different tone of voice, rather than, spending hours listening to acting with an accent.
Acting with an accent.
John has tapes of them, and sometimes his when he puts his whole library on shuffle, those come up. So you're grooving to tunes, and then it's like acting with an accent, Northern Ireland or whatever.
Yeah, there's a few.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I bring up my QA there it is.
Ta-da!
Okay. So the thing is, overall, I actually also literally just got out of the shower, so I'm just gonna do this. One of the things that we deal with when we're playing is we're here to play, and doing work in terms of creating a character voice, maintaining that character voice. Sometimes that's work we don't actually want to put in because we're trying to play. We're not trying to perform.
Yeah.
Performing takes work. Now, that's not to say that we don't do it, but sometimes we just have I don't want to drill this accent for 3 weeks before I bring it into a game, right? If you've listened to Exaltwitch Academy, you know this. The other thing that we have to take into account is that actors sometimes are really bad at divorcing themselves from their performance to real life. You will see this. You will see people do this. They'll get really hyped up for a scene, and then they'll do it, and then they have difficulty bringing themselves back down. I will be charitable and say that sometimes this is because you devote yourself and you push yourself, and it's sort of like running a marathon, and then at the end, you're exhausted. So you have a little bit of vulnerability. I think that there's more than a few actors who will do this and then act like they're having difficulty coming down because they want attention. I don't know about you. You've been around.
I work with professionals, so
You
if they
work with
pull that
professionals?
shit, they don't get another gig. So, no.
Theater school, they sure fucking do.
Oh, yeah, but that's, they're also all like 19.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard being a teenager. But I do think that, in terms of like making up for a lack of skills in those areas, yes, I had to take a performance course. No, I did not do well in it.
Oh, come on. You didn't get like a D.
No one, that's like getting a C in theater school is equivalent to failing. Like, I showed up to all my classes, I participated, but I was not good. So it's the kind of thing that, really, as long as you're engaged with the content, as long as you're putting an effort in, that's what matters. You can, if you're just playing around the table, have a bad accent, as long as it's not, like a racial stereotype. But if you're from a region, like, we both have connections to the French population here, we've grown up hearing it. If we are putting on a French accent, as long as we aren't like, baguette, then chances are...
To be fair, most of my Quebecois friends would find it fucking hilarious
Yes.
if I just went,
I used a less
that's French.
offensive stereotype, but yes. Go for it. It's just you and your friends, and if it's really much easier for you to be like, okay, the guy who works at the bakery is always like, baguette, then fantastic. Your players will know they're talking to the baker. But in terms of streaming, of course, it's much more important to be more culturally sensitive, because you aren't just trying to convey a message to your friends with a shorthand. You are opening yourselves up to the world, and it's much more important to be cognizant of everyone. Because if we did do baguette, there would be, Quebecois here who would be like, what the fuck? That's France, not Quebec.
Sometimes this also depends on the genre of game that you're trying, and also I'm in a weird position, so I'll get into that in a second. Grittier games, you probably want to avoid cartoonish voices. There's a difference between a game like, say, Changeling, where the characters are larger than life, and so therefore you can give them larger than life voices, right? You can accept Zister having a weird, speech pattern, and then you bring that into a game like Delta Green, or a game like Werewolf, with a bit of a more serious sort of focus to it, and then all of a sudden it appears out of place. So there are fewer accents and voices in Montreal by Moonlight by design. But the other thing is, I have to retire voices and then wait. There's a limit to the number of voices I can come up with on the spot. And if I started talking and someone was like, that's the voice you used for a character that I have recently played, then that character doesn't get a chance to develop an identity. People are just going to think, oh, well, that's not this new character, that's an old character with whom I have a lot of baggage associated with it. So, if I started talking like this...
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, it's Cog.
Right?
Yeah.
And then nobody would kind of divorce that. So I have to wait for some time to go by before I can bring back some of those voices. And some of them I actually just, if a game comes up and the tone of it shifts and it's something that can be a bit bigger, then I'll come up with more voices. But for Montreal by Moonlight, I specifically try to do more subtle variations in an attempt to make sure that people can tell who's talking. Some characters speak with a higher pitch, some characters speak with a lower pitch, just so that we don't get into that, like, it's this crazy cut up who's shown up, and I'm like, no, we're all dying. Yeah. The world's ending right now.
Yeah, and the difference between a female character and a male character can just be a little bit of high and a little bit of low. Rather than being like, hi, I'm a girl, because then that's weird and cartoony.
Hey, people people who are mask presenting playing femme characters, try not to just use your falsetto.
Yeah.
That's not how people talk.
Again, it goes into the cartoony, so again, it depends on the tone of your game. If it's a silly one-shot, heck, go for it.
I can't these days. If I try to talk in my falsetto too much, then I'll strain.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. Or rather, if I did, I'd have to, but then I'd have to spend an hour in vocal warm-ups before a game. And again, I do this for fun. I don't want to take a lot of time. It's the same thing. We don't tear down and put up our setup all the time. Because if we did, it would be work.
Yeah.
And we don't really want to do this for work. But yeah, I mean, it's...
Sorry, I just got Miss Strich's message earlier on about a friend that was doing a British accent. Yeah, pop that up if you could. Hello. Hello. Yeah. I feel like we could probably scale down that layer if you can find it.
Whoops, not that one.
There we go. That can probably go way down. Like it's enormous right now. Okay, great. Hi. Yeah, that just seems amazing. It's definitely a tool that you can use to accents, tones of voice are definitely tools you can use to put on a character on top of the character if you need to. And yeah, you can do this when you're a little kid. If you're...
You can do that when you're a little kid.
You can do this when you're a little kid.
Mine just goes like this. Fuck. Shit.
My favorite. I have many favorites. But yeah, see? Like, that's a whole character. And, you know, that's all you need, and I know exactly who he's talking about. So, character voices. You don't have to be a performer. And you don't have to go off the top.
When you have players who are regulars, that is something. It's much akin to there's music that I won't use anymore because people just are like, that's this character's music piece, so I don't touch it. You will probably never hear Shala's theme in a non-exalted stream because that's just associated with a character, and if I play that, it'll break that immersion right away, and people will be like, oh, it's that! And you're like, no.
Yeah, yeah.
All kids cuss in my world because all kids cuss is, I think, really what it gets down to.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, different voices, it's not that important. Look, there are things that we do on our stream that other streams don't, and there's stuff in the reverse. I don't do a lot of prop work. Part of the reason I don't do prop work is because I let the players kind of dictate what's happening, and I don't want to be like, I spent 40 hours making this, and you're like, yeah, but we want to go over north instead of south, and I'll be like, ah, fuck.
Yeah, it's like, oh, here's this beautiful map, and I'm like, I ate it. What? I ate it. But, yeah, but like, if the bad guys get the map, the world ends, so I eat it. And you're like... So
it does mean, in the end, that I do less prop work. Not zero, but far less. I'd have to have a separate map for every player. Yeah, that's fair. But there are a lot of ways that you can bring you to the game, whether you're a player or the storyteller or game master or whatever. There's lots of ways that you can bring something special from you to the game itself. Maybe you're the person who shows up and you have the best soundtrack. Maybe you're the person who shows up and you've baked everybody's favorite snack. All of these things contribute because remember, the point of role-playing is to have a good time. It's not create a story that will last for the ages. I get this when people try to tell me about the role-playing games. I'm excited about your passion. The stories, almost all of the time, the only reason why they're great is because you were there. That's not a dig. The same is with us, right? Like, I don't think that you could do a novelization of Changeling the Streaming and people, like, if you did a direct, like, transcription of what we said and did, I don't think it would work. But if you watch it, then you're present. It's part of it. You're part of it. So that's something that you can help for just to make sure that you are participating in your game. Find a way for you to come forward. Performance is not necessary. Also, the longer you do it, the better you're going to get.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't watch old campaigns because I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. You have answered this in the past, but I'm going to throw it at you. You're the only one of us who didn't do a dedicated performance program.
Yep.
Do you find that you aren't contributing in the same way that other people are?
Nope.
This is the moment where you're just like, I'm a fraud.
Nope. eager enough to roleplay and dive in and buy in that, yeah, maybe I'm not doing accents, maybe I don't have the same kind of dynamic range of emotional expression, but I don't think we've ever had comments that are like, wow, Kate's really flat, and why is she there?
We've had
she's
comments
just
about
there because
Kate's
she's
quiet.
Yeah. Like, you know, it's not like, wow, it's obvious she's just there because she's the ST's girlfriend or whatever. Like, you know, we've had enough... we've had enough, like, videos and campaigns that I imagine eventually someone somewhere would have said something.
I can say, and honestly, this is easy to say for me, I love this group, and I hope to keep playing with this group for many, many years to come. I've never been like, gee whiz, this game would be better if we had 3 players who were actors instead of 2. And of the people who we've sought out as guests, which will come into the next question, the main reason why we have sought out performers is because they're often easier to throw in front of a camera.
Yeah.
So why don't we get to that one? Why don't we take a look at that, and why don't you read that out?
Osab asks, over the years, RPGClinic has had some fantastic guests join them in their adventures. A, how do you determine when to bring a guest in versus running lean? And, once you've made that decision, B, how do you decide which of your many talented friends you're going to invite for a given session?
I'm just going to make sure that this gets some time in the sun.
Thank you, DJ Quiver.
Also, DJ Quiver, your profile icon is great. They're just arrows.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so here's the thing. We have a couple of things that we have to think about when it comes to inviting people onto the stream. The first is that it is a stream, and not everybody is going to be comfortable playing in an environment where A, people are watching live, B, you're surrounded by equipment, C, it's going to be recorded for posterity and will last forever because it's the internet. That's a hard ask for a lot of people. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to find somebody who would actually want to show up, who would want to play. And that includes people who are both on camera and people who have guest starred off camera. But we are... So here's... Oh, Miss Rich asked a great question. We'll get to that later. But here's the thing. I'm very picky when it comes to guests, and there's a few reasons for that. And the main reason, first and foremost, is I'm not somebody who wants to have a rotating, like, hey, this session we've got this guest, and this session we've got that guest, and now this... Because guests are actually quite a bit of work. They're a lot of work. I'm going to explain how they're work from my standpoint, and then we're going to explain how they're a lot of work on your standpoint, which is different. For me, I have to prepare for guests, either because I'm giving them information that I need for them to impart, I have to coach them as to how I want them to give that information, and I also have to trust that they're going to play in a way that isn't going to run roughshod over the game. I have played with guests, not on stream, but I have had games where I've invited a guest, and that guest is like, it's the me hour, and all they do is just be big, because it's their chance to perform for their friends, and I'm like, that now the game isn't fun, because now we're just like, basically, we're humoring somebody for 2 hours and then wishing that we hadn't invited them.
I've also seen the opposite, where someone's invited in and it's just like, they just sit there. They don't really, like, they either aren't aware enough of the game or comfortable enough interjecting or whatever it is, but they just kind of sit there and do like 4 things, which also isn't fun for anyone.
And then past that, there's also the idea that somebody might do something because I let my players go where they want to go, do what they want to do. I try as little as possible to railroad them. I put suggestions in front of them, but if I have a guest who then introduces something and the players latch onto it, I don't want to say no. The players could latch onto something that I never intended if the guest does or says something that I don't want to break game by being like, actually that didn't happen. Like the player's like, and it turns out that I'm actually a Martian, and then I'm like, fuck, my realistic, gritty, medieval drama is now science fiction. Hey, Flower of August. So that's an issue. that's why I've been hesitant at times to bring people in. And I also am hesitant to bring in new people because then I don't want the community to start thinking, why am I being left out? Because I don't want to invite 700 people onto the stream all at once. Again, nothing to you. Which is why when it comes to guests, for main campaigns, typically the only guest who makes it on is Aragorn. Long time ago, we had Cap Daff. So Cap Daff had, he would record recaps, which we would play, and I gave him a role of a character who was no longer alive. And that was interesting for us. And Aragorn's been around since almost the very beginning and had ideas and approached me with it, and then I thought, oh, okay, I could actually really use this. And I kind of capped it there. Captain Splooey sort of hops in because he's in the same location as Aragorn. We'll put it that way. They can talk about how much they want to do there. And that's a, hey, Neanderthal.
Hello.
Yeah, he's a +1. The thing is, I had to talk with him first. I had to go through the motions. I had to figure out what it was going to take. And that was fine. But you see that if I start adding like 2 more people, the thing that I don't want is I don't want people to reach out to me and ask if they can be part of the game. Because then, unfortunately, that puts me in a situation where I have to say, probably no. And I don't like doing that. But let's figure out what it's like from your side of the table when we have guests.
So for virtual guests, I mean, it's very fun as a player. To have new different people to interact with, but it definitely does put some guide rails, some restrictions on what we can and can't do, just by nature of, oh, well, we've got these people for these 2 weeks, and therefore, I guess this is what I have to focus on in character, this is where I have to be in character, and we have to make sure we resolve it in that window of time. Or we have to figure out a way to sort of hand wave the fact that, you know, oh wow, they're suddenly not there anymore. It's not because they hate us. They just got an important phone call. Woo! But also, we may have a better setup now, but up until our last time having virtual guests, it's just a lot of extra technical work to make sure that we can hear them, you can hear them, there's no feedback. They can hear us, all of those directions of signal communication, and often it's difficult over voice chat in that, like, trying to balance our ability to hear them with not having feedback or echo makes it difficult for us to hear them, and just the inherent latency of voice chat is, like, we're spoiled by being able to play together. During COVID, we did separate streams. We would stream from different places. It was better than nothing. I was so thankful to have it, but I hate it, and I don't enjoy it. I just find
hey, we did it for a while. I was in my super secret location.
Yeah. It was a little bit easier because you're the ST.
Yeah.
So there's always that one directional interaction, but I just find the latency so difficult to navigate personally. And it's something that I struggle with in Zoom calls, the rare time I have them. Like, thankfully, I don't have to do it very often in my work, but it's just...
Yeah. As a storyteller, it's sometimes easier because when I speak, people tend to shut up.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not interrupting me that often. But go back, have a listen to games that we've played where we were in separate locations, and there is indeed, there's a lag that we have to deal with, and that lag is something that we have to take into account. Having guests sometimes is really fun, and it can be worth it.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that on stream, the worst sin you can commit is having bad audio.
Yeah.
We've had to deal with this recently in a bunch of different contexts. Watching other people do streams, the number one thing you can do is improve your audio. People will do things like get a green screen, they'll get a fancy camera, they'll get their DSLRs out, they'll set it all up so that it has really snazzy effects going around, and then if I can't hear you properly, I don't care.
Yeah.
If I can't tell that you're speaking, I have a problem with that. And if I hear an echo, that's all anyone's going to comment. Exactly, Miss Rich. Like that's a problem. Like that's a thing. And recently, part of the reason why I'm glad that we're on our own channel and not participating on someone else's is that I feel frustrated when I'm on someone else's channel. I feel like I have to put forward my A game, right? Like, then I am going to give a fuck. I'm going to try as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And then I get disappointed when other people don't feel the same way. And that's not fair, perhaps, because, you know, there's a cost associated with it and all of that. But guests, that is an issue.
Yeah.
Now, we've had guests in person. And that's actually going to tie into this question. Would we ever consider going to 4 main players? We don't have the space. Straight up. One day when we finally do our fabled, behind the scenes stream, which we probably should have done today if we'd set it up and we didn't. Oops. But there might be another occasion for it at some point. Just, again, real life takes precedence, and Liz and Scott weren't able to play today. Thankfully, that doesn't happen very often, but when it does, we'll take advantage of it one day to show you the setup. But we literally don't have a place to put a 4th player.
Yeah. And we could squeeze together like we could, but it would actually mean that John wouldn't be able to leave the room without everyone getting up. And we'd have to change our camera angles, we'd have to get more microphones. We're in our own home, and we're very fortunate that we chose to, it was important to us to have space for it. So that's part of why we moved to the neighborhood that we did when we made this move. It allowed us to have more space for the amount of money we had, which meant that we have space to have our streams here in our home, but it does mean that we don't have room for more people. So we'd have to set up in our dining room or our living room or something, and that requires moving all of our equipment. I know, Flower of August. The people were talking about the huge lottery, and honestly, I feel like one of the first things I'd do would be studio space for RPG Clinic.
It would be awesome. Now, that's not a never.
No.
It's not a never. It is technically possible if we broke down our setup, brought it to another room, or if we just accepted the fact that, hey, when we're playing in here, I can't leave the room. I often don't. When we take breaks, I'm often the one who stays behind. Or if it's we have to take a break, John literally has to crawl under the table to get to the place. There are ways that we could potentially do it. But there's another consideration. I like having 3 players. I can give a lot of them all the attention that they deserve. And the odd number dynamic also helps. Odd numbers tend to propel things forward. Even numbers, sometimes you get deadlocks. And it's a little bit of selfishness that I like having that. Now, we did do full party, not on this channel, and when people bring up full party, that is something just to keep in mind. Full party was kind of a different beast. A lot of that wasn't us. So there were some decisions made, some equipment used that just wasn't ours. So whether we would make the same decisions or not is a question. But in that case, we were filming in a much larger space with different equipment. And so there was a bit more of an emphasis on the people who did full party wanted to have 4 players. Yeah. So we did. I didn't control casting in full party, so I kind of did what was there. I'm not saying I hated the experience. I liked all of those players. I really enjoyed playing with them. It was great. But it came with challenges, and you think dealing with 3 people who want to go on their own is one thing, 4 is another thing.
You just give us too many interesting plot hooks, okay? You just have to suck more, and then we'll stick together.
So the answer is not never. I definitely would. There are streams where I see that there's 5 players in a storyteller, 6, 7. Critical Role has 18. I don't know. That's not for me. That is past my wish, because I prefer to go more in depth, to be able to do specific interactions with 1 player more often, or 2 players, and I don't want the implication to be that there's people waiting around. Other game groups, that's not an issue, and that's not a failure on their part. It's not a failure on my part. It's just different styles.
Yeah. There's another factor, which is scheduling. The reason why we're doing this week is that Scott and Liz aren't available, and part of why we're doing a bunch of solo sessions over the coming weeks is that we have a variety of scheduling conflicts coming up, and that's with 2 households, 4 people.
Yeah.
If we added another person, we would be asking them to give up all of their Sundays forever for free, to come to our house every Sunday. And to, just schedule around their life. Like we have made that choice. This is really important to us. We love it. It's a highlight of my week. I always look forward to it. But that's asking a lot of another person to come in and do that, because it's not their baby in the same way. I get this a lot with my work, is that, some writer-directors dream, they've got this vision, they want it to come to life, they have very little money, they're like, oh, we'll do it for the art, and it's their vision. It's nice, but it doesn't move me, it doesn't motivate me. I'm not going to give up 12 extra hours per week for free for their idea. It doesn't move me the same way.
No.
Whereas it is I believe, I think all 4 of us, it's something that's very important and valuable to us.
I mean, you said 2 households, and I think that's a really interesting point, is that it's a lot easier to deal with just one other household than ours than it would be even if it was 2 other households. Also, to put it another way, my family understands, for instance, like they live locally. And when they're like, hey, we're doing something on a Sunday, they're just used to the fact that I'm going to say no. And that's harder than it looks sometimes to maintain. Thanksgiving weekend for Canadians, that's coming up in October. That's something that's typically, for some families, that's celebrated on Sundays. And I kind of have to be like, yeah, I can do Sunday evening because we happen to play during the afternoon, but like I'm not showing up until 6.
Yeah.
And we've been doing this for a long time. They understand. I have personal reasons to want to do it this way. I have professional reasons for wanting to do it this way. I have, mental health reasons why I want to do it this way. But to ask somebody else to do that, this is the kind of thing that, like, the number of times that we miss a week, admittedly, recently, it's been very high for us, and we've felt it. We have long conversations about how we mitigate that. But we don't miss sessions very often at all, which is great.
Yeah.
But add one more player and it exponentially goes up.
Finding a new dynamic with the 5th would be hard as well, as Flower of August says, but I will say that I imagine it's the same with film, but definitely with theater, you're thrown together on a project and you have to make it work somehow. You don't have to be best friends, but you have to learn how to build a dynamic that will last long enough for the project, whether that's the film, the television series, the theater piece. So I think that perhaps more so than your average person, by the nature of our gig work and constantly being thrown together to work collaboratively and creatively with strangers, or people that, are colleagues, people we've known peripherally, I do think that we would be able to build a dynamic with a 5th, but yeah, it wouldn't be the same, and I think I'd hold my safety tools tighter, not because I'd expect anyone else to be a bad person, but just, we've been playing together for almost 10 years now. There's a level of understanding that allows a freedom and a relaxation, knowing that our boundaries won't be broken by accident.
Now, we have had guests, but typically when we have guests, it's often because one of us can't play, and we're doing a one-shot or a mini campaign or the like. And when we have those people come in, often they're people who we've worked with, people who we're friends with. Skylar is somebody who a bunch of us have worked with in the past, who we admire, and oftentimes it's also somebody who we know and really like, and then they mention that they role play, and we're like,
yeah.
Right. So Jess, the same way, but oftentimes when we are engaged in bringing a guest on, it's because all of us have just kind of said, oh yeah, this person's fun, let's bring them in. I think 100% of the time, actually, if it's an in-person guest, it's somebody who is a performer.
Yeah.
Just because we can trust them to fit in with the environment that we're doing a little faster and easier. And there are guests that we've had who I'd love to have again. I mean, I don't know if there's a guest that we've had that I'm like,
never again. No, I don't think so.
And there's people who I wish we could bring on every once in a while, but I also just don't want to mess with a good thing. Montreal by Moonlight is going on. It's been going for a long time. Bringing a guest onto that changes the feeling of that, sometimes for the better. But again, very specifically, if it's in person, it means we're breaking down the set. Yeah. Which one day we may do. If we ever get around to doing like a marathon stream.
Yeah, we'd probably do it.
We would probably do it. We would move it into, say, our dining room or something like that. Just because then we could have a guest on and it would be easier. But for now, that's something that we kind of have to keep a close eye on. But that dynamic is something that we've worked hard to establish. We don't want to mess with it.
Yeah.
Aragorn says something extremely pertinent to this. One of the positives of streaming is that there's an external reason to meet, because you have a lot of external households that you're playing with, meeting the audience. So it can feel like pressure, but it's also a good motivator to keep to a schedule, and that can make a game more successful. Completely correct. One of the reasons why we can maintain the schedule is because we have an audience. They're expecting us at this time. That's why we don't even like changing the time that we stream.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why we're streaming today, is like, well, we don't want to not have a stream, right? Otherwise we could just be like, oh, well, we won't play this week, that's fine. But yeah, it's nice to be able to share with you, and you folks are the reason why we're still doing it as well. Like, we're having fun, but yeah, we wouldn't be here without y'all.
Part of what we do is because we like having the audience participation. We like it when other people are responding to the stories or giving us suggestions or reminding us of the number of rules that we're breaking. That doesn't happen actually nearly as often as I mean when I say that. Pinky Pact is another great example. If you want to watch a game with more players, go watch Pinky Pact, and they make it work. This is an example of them using audio and the visuals supporting the audio very well. Using PNG tubers to indicate when someone's speaking is a huge benefit, because especially if two people have similar voices, if they're in the same register or whatever, if you don't have something visual to latch onto, it can be difficult to tell who's talking. Pinky Pact has done tons to mitigate that and to bring you something that you can really engage with and have fun with. But they operate with 5 players and a storyteller, I think.
6?
Is it 5 or 6?
I think it depends on the week. Like, that's the thing. They have a large enough crew that sometimes I think if one person is available, they still keep going.
Yep.
But yeah, I feel like it's 5 plus you. Okay, I don't know. I've lost count. There's more than 3 and I can't count. That's
one,
that's
too
real.
Many.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, lots. Yeah.
It's a great way to do it. The thing is, their style of game is different from our style. And I could totally understand if you tuned into Pinky Pact and were like, this is great. It gives me everything that I don't have from RPGClinic, and I would be like, go for it.
Yeah.
I would say that there's some people who could watch us and couldn't watch them, and vice versa, and that's okay. I can't watch Critical Role.
No.
And that's not to say that I don't think Critical Role isn't an amazing product. I'm just like, it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
And it's okay if it's not my thing. That's fine. But you're right, Gwen. Having the additional pressure of there are people who are tuning in to watch makes it much easier for us to maintain a schedule. And that is the final boss of all adult role-playing, is scheduling.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So Zava prompts prep load versus at the table mental load. How different games have different demands with regards to that? How that can be a problem for people, how people have different preferences with regards to these two axes, and they can be conditional on circumstances. So what we're looking at is the idea that you are doing things in advance of the game and then doing things during the game. And in fact, this affects both players and storytellers. I'm actually going to throw this over to you first, because you do more prep than I do.
I mean, I do tech prep. We take turns writing recaps.
All the cards that you've printed out, the apps that you've developed.
Yeah, I mean, I I mean, that'll also flow into later questions about tech and how tech would be different compared to if we were not streaming. But, so for these games, I will say that something that most of the games we play lack, especially since we tend to be playing them right when they're fresh, is, sorry, I just saw the thing resize and got distracted, is like really helpful charts. And so for me to get to understand a game and a system, because we're streaming, because I don't want to waste viewers' time with me flipping through the book and looking things up, whereas if you're around a table just you, oh, okay, take 2 seconds, run to the bathroom, grab a snack, look at your phone, whatever. While we're on stream, I don't want to waste that time. So I take the time to make myself cheat sheets, reference sheets, things like that, that make sense to me. Because especially while these games are new, sometimes there's like one other person has put one out, and sometimes it's great, sometimes I'll use it, sometimes I'll need to reformulate it for my brain. And since I started making bots, going through the logic of like, if this, then that, really helps me feel like I fully understand the rules. It's like, oh, okay, well, if I'm making a roll in Werewolf 5th, and I don't have enough successes, I can use a willpower to reroll up to 3 dice, but only if it isn't a brutal outcome. And I can't change any of the dice that have 1s or 2s if it's a rage die. Like, that level of logic and understanding, yeah, it's time that I spend to understand a system. And then things like our gifts, again, because we're using new systems, they don't have cards that have, like, your abilities printed out on them yet when we start. So I work
They're in
towards
development.
developing.
They're making
Yeah,
some
absolutely.
ones.
Like, and that's the case for most game systems, is that they do develop them. I mean, Daggerheart came with them right off the bat, which, thumbs up. But that's also because they had, like, the money and the time and the resources to have that ready to start.
Right.
But it's the kind of thing that, yeah. But I guess I don't think of that as, like, day-to-day prep, as opposed to prep for a new system.
So players, their preparation load versus at the table, for a lot of games, for players, the prep load is kind of before the game actually starts. Character creation, learning the rules, and then when you change your abilities, then you have to kind of refresh yourself. So for players, often most of the load is at the table, and it's just, how do I play? Both how do I play from a narrative perspective and how do I play from a system perspective. That's the kind of thing that you kind of have to ask players what they're comfortable with. Some players, they're math people, and they can just be like, yeah, I figured out this entire system. I know what happens. All of my dice are laid out. I can do this, no problem. Don't need any reminders. I've got it. Rules lawyers will fall under this. People who have just read the rules backwards and forwards over and over again, and so they just know. Although I will be cautioning people out there, rules lawyers make mistakes, and because they are confidently incorrect, sometimes it's worth checking.
Yeah.
Now, for a storyteller, I'm going to point the mic at me for a second. For a storyteller, some of this ends up being an issue because some games demand a lot of prep in advance. Some games are designed to say, well, prep some and then you can just deal with it. And some games give you alarmingly little to prep. And that's kind of a thing that you have to recognize in yourself of what you need to do. When I prepare, I don't often write physical notes because I like to be flexible. And I find that if I have too many things that are written down, my tendency is to want to veer towards the things that I've written down. And I don't want to do that. I want to go where my players want to go. So what I intend to do when I prepare is I intend to think about what narrative am I looking to do? What twists can I throw on my players? What are things that I know about the world that I can bring to them should they come up? And because I don't write them down, I can be flexible about these sorts of things. And that doesn't mean that I change things all the time in order to suit the game, but I am not against that. If all three of my players are constantly working and working and working because they believe one thing, and then it turns out the opposite is true, sometimes it's great to pull the rug out from under them and be like, haha, none of you guessed it. And sometimes it can make the game feel awful. If you are doing a redemption arc, and in the redemption arc, you are just constantly being betrayed left, right, and center, but the players keep trying and keep trying and keep trying, and you just keep wrecking and countering what they're trying to do, then what you're doing at that point is you're rejecting the version of the story that your players are trying to make happen. And sometimes that's exactly what the game asks for, but a lot of the time it's not. So in that particular case, what I am looking to do when I'm preparing is I am trying to figure out what I can change in order to suit what the players want. But people have other things that they have to deal with. Flower of August mentioned D&D, maps, and stat blocks. So this is part of the reason why I don't like D&D. And I don't think that that's something that is I've talked about it numerous times on Clinic Hours. It's not that I think that D&D is bad. It's that I don't want to have a map ready and saying, I've already figured out what this combat encounter is going to look like. I know how many people are showing up. I know where they are and all that. That's not my style. And it's a lot of work. But for some people, that is a security blanket that they can wrap around themselves. That's something that they can say, look, I've got it all here. Somebody did the math for me in advance. And because I've prepared in advance, I don't have to worry about things forgetting something or being wildly inaccurate about something. I just know what's happening. I know what the deal is, and that's perfect for me. And that's great. You have to figure out for yourself what you're comfortable with, but you also have to tell your players what you are comfortable with and understand that it's okay if you tell them, I don't know what's going on, man. I need a break. I need to figure this out. I need to take 5 minutes, 15 days to figure out what I have to do next. It's fine. I've been improvising for literally decades, and I've become pretty adept at it. Do not take my example as something that you have to do.
Yep. Yeah. Some folks, you need the time. You need to figure it out in advance because you can't think as quickly on your feet, and that's totally valid. Yeah. My D&D experience was just graph paper and a pencil, so it definitely allowed the DM the freedom to be like, oh yeah, the room is this big, and that's all we had, right? It was just like, okay, this is how big the room is. But I know that especially with the advent of things like Critical Role, there's this pressure to have everything prepared, to have all these minis, to have all these encounters, to have everything perfect and at an extremely polished tier. But that's literally their full-time job in addition to having an entire team supporting them.
We're about to hit an ad break.
Boo!
Which we hate. And again, that's not controlled by us. Mm-hmm. We will keep talking. If you are subscribed to the channel, you will continue to see us. Just understand that if you're not, we will go on to the next question when the ad break is over.
Yeah.
So we're sorry about this. Trust us. We don't want it. Mm-hmm. It's dumb. Yeah. Flower of August mentions that I'm good at this stuff and I make it look easy. Here's the problem. It's easier for me than preparation, which I think is another way of putting it. Preparation is a much different beast, and it's something that if I was to run a game and I needed to prepare things in advance, I don't think I'd be as good at it as a lot of people would be, because it's just not, again, my style. But I'm also not going to pretend that my style is something that people can pick up and do with no problem. The thing is, it's a little bit like swimming. It's very difficult to learn how to swim unless you actually get in the water. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to learn how to storytell on the fly unless you do it. And it's okay to start out with a life preserver on and telling your players that I might need you to hold me up while I kick. But it's not something that is easy to do naturally. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to just do it. Yeah. And then you'll keep getting better as it stands. Yeah, it's a muscle. It's a skill. Like Requiem's saying, if something looks easy, it's probably harder than it appears. That's exactly it. Like, John has done improv for
a long time. He's been playing role-playing games for a long time. It's practice, 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 practice. So to look as, like, to make it seem as easy and for it to be as small of a mental load, like to be scaled down to the size that it is today, came from years and years and years of it being a bigger workload, taking more effort, taking more, even if it's not like preparation of picking stat blocks and maps, it's still the mental planning of, okay, what could be the potential outcomes of this thing that's just happened. So it's definitely, practice makes perfect, and like you said, it's okay to not be perfect now.
It's also okay to be perfect never.
Yeah.
This is the Matt Mercer effect. Yeah. This is a very real problem that people have when they join a game and they're like, this sucks because it's not like what I expect from Critical Role. You're not going to get a Critical Role style game unless Matt Mercer is running it, and if you are a professional voice actor, right? Like, that's something else. It's not just the storyteller style, it's yours going into it, and you shouldn't expect a Critical Role style game if that's not the kind of game that you are wanting to play. So find the game that works for you. Find the method that you want for you, and you're going to be a lot happier than trying to emulate somebody else.
Yeah. It's also just you don't have that staff, right? Little things like having your character sheet printed, or making sure you have like your iPad charged, or that there are snacks available. These are all the little things that are on you instead of a whole production team.
Yeah.
You
ever see Kate looking at her phone during game?
Yeah.
90% of the time,
yeah,
it's something tech related or it's something character related.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't have a production team willing to do that for you.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody who had to deal with that bullshit. But a lot of this actually goes into the next question, which comes from Neanderthal. When do you know when a battle in the World of Darkness is too much for your players and one is too little? Well, a lot of that is preparing on the fly.
Yeah.
It is a tough call sometimes to do that, because the World of Darkness storyteller system is not designed for easy math. It really isn't. Most game systems like Dungeons and Dragons have extensive playtesting in order for you to say, okay, a player with this much experience should be able to handle an encounter like this while spending these many resources. Resources being hit points, spell slots, potions, consumables, or even just willpower, that kind of stuff. All of those are resources. When you create a game, you have resources, and then you want to put drains. You want to give players the opportunity to spend those resources, because if they don't, then why do you have them in the first place? And the storyteller system is not built around that way, because I could make a character who's very, very good at one thing and shit at combat.
Yeah.
And that's a legitimate way to play. And then when combat comes in and you're like, okay, well, my character sucks ass at combat. Meanwhile, the other person who's created somebody who's like, well, I'm part of the military. I already have a whole ton of combat training. This is what I was born for. And how do you make a combat that can work for either player?
I also think it comes down to, it's not just improv, but it's just keeping aware of your players. There's a mindset where it's like, well, this is what the numbers say, and this is what this enemy would do, and just sticking to it. And then the dice are going to fall where they fall, and that may be okay, or it may lead to you TPKing 2 players on your first session. I did that. Not TPKing, I guess, but like killing two of 4 players on your very first session. And that's probably not so fun. So it's about lifting yourself up out of the numbers and looking at the people around the table and realizing, oh, this person has 1 hit point. Let me find an excuse for this enemy to attack someone else, to take a different action. Maybe they'll heal themselves, which will suck, but it gives your players a chance to recover as well.
So there's an addendum to the question thrown on there. If I may add, when do you know there's enough enemies on the battlefield? Okay, so couple of things. Some versions of the storyteller system kind of take this into account. A lot of them don't. And this is something that we've seen recently in games like Daggerheart, for instance, where initiative is not something that it's literally just everybody goes in order. There's an issue with having many different enemies. It's a lot more mental load on everybody, players and storyteller included. But having only one enemy, you have a disadvantage because that's one person who gets to act while the players get 3 actions, or 4 or 5, depending on how many players you have. And so it can be difficult to scale that way. And then that's when it comes to what Captain Splooey has thrown at us, which is that where some of the improv comes in, adjusting as the fight plays out. In the World of Darkness and in other storyteller system games, this is a critical part of it. Now, I have to warn you in advance that if you say there's 500 enemies approaching and then you realize that your players are screwed and then you're like, and 498 of them fall down dead, you screwed your narrative a little bit unless you can explain why that happened. But there is a certain amount of adjusting that you can do. For one thing, the character sheet of the opponents does not need to be revealed. And you do not need to be like, well, they have 7 health levels. Maybe they only effectively have 5 or 6 or 12. That's something that you can determine on your own. Do you have to keep strict records of everything that happens to them? Not necessarily. If you fudge too much, your players are going to assume that there's no reason to do anything. So you can't go too far in the other direction. If I presented you with a combat and then it always seemed like you were just getting by the skin of your teeth, but it also seemed like things changed a ton during all the combats, how would you feel about that?
Well, specifically, it's if I was fighting, a bunch of soldiers, and I encountered them the first time, and it was a real struggle, and we barely made it out. And then 50 sessions later, we've all leveled up a ton. We encounter another pack of the same soldiers that are also fresh recruits. They just walked out of the training camp or whatever, so it's obvious that they're the same level, and it's just as difficult. Then it ruins the player fantasy of I've gotten better, I've gotten stronger, if the mooks are still really hard to defeat. So exactly. I think it is important to not strictly adhere to the numbers in a game like Storyteller. I think that, unfortunately, the variability can be such that your player who is the world's best sword fighter can botch. And that's okay, that can be interesting. But if the world's best sword fighter keeps only rolling 2 successes against someone who's supposed to be kind of mid, and they keep rolling 8 successes, that can add up to breaking the fantasy.
Requiem's making reference to something that I have a term for. Some combats you want the struggle, some combats you just want a raffle stomp. We, in the games industry, these are often known as popcorn fights. They're fights that you can run into, just go, ba, 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 oh, I'm so cool, and then you keep going, right? They're designed to make the player feel like a badass. Sometimes in a game, you don't get very many popcorn fights at the start at all, but then as you keep going, you bring back this old enemy, and you're like, oh, I used to fight a ton of these, and now I can just, blink and they get blown out of existence. And that's to sell the player fantasy of, oh, my character's gotten better. Even harder, but also applicable, is sometimes it's not that the player's character has become better, it's that the player has more skill. So they're like, well, at first I struggled, but now I'm so good at this game that these are not an issue for me at all. In the context of a role-playing game, a popcorn fight is designed to make the players feel powerful. Then you'll have a fight that's like a mid-tier fight, where it's to give the players a feeling of struggle, but still overall we're ready for this. And then you have boss fights. Boss fights are either what's called a skill check, or it's just a sponge. So skill checks are, okay, you've learned how to use all the stuff that you have on other people, now I need you to put it to the test against something that can truly threaten you. And then sponges are, okay, this is going to be something that just takes a lot of hits to bring down, and therein lies the fantasy that we're selling is, this guy's so powerful that even my huge powerful attacks can't do anything. The storyteller system does not necessarily create sponges that easily, because they're often like, the number of health levels that you have is equal to your stamina plus X. Well, the stamina range is only so wide, and it looks really weird if all of a sudden the big bad guy has a stamina of 14 when the theoretical human max is 5.
Yeah. But at the same time, you want the boss to be a challenge.
Yeah.
So it's...
So in the world of darkness, what is a stat check boss fit into? So a stat check is, am I strong enough to be able to damage this thing, right? It's, have I leveled up enough? Do I have enough defense? Do I have enough power? I literally just beat Tears of the Kingdom a few hours ago. I had never gotten around to it. I finally settled down, started playing it properly. And Tears of the Kingdom is a game where you could just skill your way all the way through it. It's much like Breath of the Wild. If you know where to go, you can just head straight for the exit. But it would be incredibly difficult. The more you grind, the easier it gets. But it is still, depending on how much you grind, that's the idea of a stat check, is that, like, well, if this thing kills you, if you don't have at least 5 hearts, then the stat check is you need to have at least 6 hearts, otherwise the enemy can one-shot you. In the world of darkness, you have this, in that if I have a player character who can't take a hit, can't dodge, and can't roll to save their lives, then if I have a gun, I could kill that character. Just a gun, just a normal gun, and I can just go blat, and then that's it.
First few sessions of Changeling, Brom almost died. He was just like, yeah, I can take this, and it's like, oh no, I can't. And that is, yeah, it's that, and it's in 5th with the opposed rolls. The stat check is they'll have a bigger pool than most of your players. And in 20th, it's similar. But it can be that they'll have a higher defense or a higher damage, but maybe they'll be more equivalent in terms of actual ability to hit. But those are definitely like stat check bosses. You can do the same for social encounters as well. Just bigger pools.
So that goes into the next step, which is figure out what your players are actually good at and understand that you're allowed to challenge them at the things they're bad at. It is also lame to min-max a character and then for that character just win every encounter because they find a way to deal with it using their preferred tools. But you also have to understand that if you're putting like 50 combatants on the field, one of the ways in which you might be able to deal with it is that somebody can say, great, I'm going to use my knowledge of technology to spill water all over the ground and then shock it so that it electrocutes half of the people on the field, right? You don't need any combat stats for that, and in the storyteller system, that's a legitimate play that you could potentially do. Figure out a different way to resolve the combat encounter. Maybe if it's exalted, you can literally stand up and play a really nice piece of music where you just do a fantastic dance and everyone just goes, bah! And then that's it. That's the way that you deal with 98% of the people on the field. And that can make the player feel good. I created a dancer, and my dance solved the problems of the world. Go watch Academy. It happened.
Yep.
But so Neanderthal mentioned something here, like we've calculated in Vampire the Masquerade, our Bruja can do 5 aggravated damage as a base because he's maxed out his potence. See, like, the part of the difficulty with Storyteller is how do you balance that Bruja, who can do that much damage, next to the Toreador who's standing next to this Bruja, who can't attack for shit?
I mean, they can sort of, do a little bit, but they're also like, ooh, artwork. So pretty.
They can use their celerity to run the fuck away is what they can do.
That's exactly it.
So sometimes you can spotlight a player and be like, yep, it's combat, and you're good at combat, so you're going to do it. But what happens if you want to have like a boss fight where everybody has to be threatened and not just one? That's a really tough situation to get yourself into, because if you say, well, this guy can do an attack that has base 5 ag, the beat stick over there can handle that, but the doe-eyed twink over there can't. That means that I roll once, and for one person, that's like, I toughly take it, and for the other one, they can't do shit. They die.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of figuring out how to convey to your players, like, oh, well, all 5 of you are hitting the big bad, but this one hurt the most, so I'm going to attack this one, sort of thing, or something. You find a way to describe it to excuse the fact that they're going to wail on the person who can take it, as opposed to the person who won't. Same time, if your rogue goes up and sneaks attacks and everyone else is busy buffing, then maybe your rogue is just gonna get slapped down because the rest of the party hasn't supported them. So that's also part of building the party dynamic, is that you make sure that ideally your party finds a way to balance it, that the players, part of their practice and actions and tendencies is to make sure that they don't leave the tiny dinky little splattable wizard in the face of the big dragon.
So that leads into, and Requiem, I am actually going to put your question up. In Exalted Academy, Aresta, as played by Kate, got her so high enough that I could hardly scratch her in a fight. How would I set up a fight to challenge a PC like hers that wouldn't just one-shot the other PC? So first of all, we were not playing, depending on when you watched Academy, we were not playing with the final version of Exalted Essence. Also, Exalted Essence, don't think is that great a system, bluntly.
Not for us.
Not for us, anyway. What you do is you have battles with multiple goals. So if you have a playing field where there's 100 enemies, start figuring out ways to be like, okay, well, clearly one person is going to get out there and just fight the big bads. But what can the other players do while they're still engaged in combat and dodging around and stuff like that? Like, what else can they do? Is there a goal in the room that they have to achieve, right? Like, when we are in the dungeon, we have to get the sacred orb. Okay, a MacGuffin. Well, the person who's in the middle of combat can't get to the orb. Now, if you said, well, it doesn't matter, all you have to do is just wait to kill the big bad and then you can get the orb, that's one thing. But what if the room is slowly filling with gas? Okay, well, now you have to get the orb out within 3 rounds. Otherwise, the orb is lost forever. Well, now you have an objective for somebody else to do while they're still dodging bullets and figuring out how to not fuck this up. But now, instead of taking the onus on them and saying, you have to fight alongside everybody else, which in a normal situation would be like, I'm not a fighter, that's just dumb. Instead, you give them another goal. Are you a social creature? Maybe your goal is to convince everybody else to put their weapons down. Maybe your goal is to just survive for a little bit and just understand that, like, yep, in this particular situation, you just have to make sure that you don't fucking die, because in the next room is where you're going to meet the person that you're going to have to convince to help come with you. And in that case, the beat stick is going to be useless in that situation.
I also feel like in Exalted Academy, so much of our fights were tactical, whether that's actually like tactical, or whether it's like, oh, the problem isn't do a bunch of damage or take lots of damage. It's, oh, well, that's over there and this is over here and this surprising thing has happened. It's the reality of the situation rather than just, number goes up or number goes down.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to hold on to a goose.
So that's the other thing that you can do. Take out the big beat stick.
Yep.
And then force everybody else to scramble and deal with it. The big beat stick, maybe they are holding an egg. And you're like, if this egg breaks, the world ends. And so then that person's like, oh, well, I can't punch anybody. I'm holding an egg. We're not all Jackie Chan. And that's a way for you to mitigate it. So the answer really to Neanderthal's question, in the end, is in a game where the math isn't done for you, and it isn't actually all that practical to do so, is to accept that you cannot perfectly balance, in which case you have to be flexible in how the battle proceeds and what the options are. You also have to do, as a storyteller, here's one other thing. If you want to run a game where you're expecting all your players to be in combat constantly, and one player is min-maxed for combat, kill the player. Wait, the character. Kill the character. And here's why. If you have somebody who's just clearly better than everybody else at the main activity that everyone's going to be doing at all times, the game's going to be less fun. And that's something that you kind of have to deal with right at the start. Or as soon as you start noticing that somebody is just min-maxing their way through it. You can wreck a game if you're just like, well, I'm here and I thought that I was creating a well-rounded character, but since 95% of what we're doing is fighting, then the only person who's really going to be effective is the beat stick. Well, then the beat stick, maybe you need to tone that beat stick down. or change the kind of game that you're playing, or make everybody make beat sticks.
Or break their weapon. And suddenly, they're min-maxed, perfect sword and perfect cape and perfect this and perfect that. The whole party fell into a lava pit. You made it out alive, barely. You're super scorched, but all your equipment's gone. Oh shit, you still have like one more dot in your physicals compared to the rest of the party, but you don't also have the +5 this, +5 that.
So you got to be a little careful with that, and then if you take something away from a player, sometimes they can be awful sore about it.
Oh yeah.
But there is a responsibility on the part of the storyteller and the players. It's not on just one of you to make sure that the balance of the game isn't wrecked. Maybe all the players are very happy to share the spotlight. One player's good at combat, one player's good at solving things and intellectual stuff, one player's the social butterfly, and that's okay because everybody is happy to cede the spotlight. But if the storyteller is like, well, it's mostly a gritty game that's going to involve, hard-boiled detective shit, and combat is going to be extremely rare, and nobody ever wants to talk to you, well, then two players are now going to be like, the fuck? And unless they're okay with that, then you have a problem. So, that is an issue, right? To the storyteller system, is you have to craft the game around the players and their abilities or lack thereof. So, I'd also just recommend in the storyteller system, if you're going to pile minions and have there's 30 people in this room, start fudging some rules. Start figuring out ways that you can be like, okay, well, let's call this group a group, and you only have to deal a certain amount of damage to the group before they fall over or whatever, because otherwise, what you should be doing in that circumstance, if there's 30 equal combatants in a room against one person, then that person might be able to take out 2 or 3 before they get absolutely swarmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Neanderthal, I totally get that when you say that you're only 4 years old, I think what you mean is that your undeath is 4 years, as opposed to I'm a little baby Twibio.
Hello.
Hello. I got embraced when I was tiny.
Yeah.
But the correct answer, Neanderthal, is that since you're a Tremere, you should be bad at combat and you should get stomped all the time because fuck the Tremere. No, I don't mean it. I'm sorry. The joke in all the vampire LARPs that I played here in Montreal is fuck the Tremere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a very good question. The answer is the balance comes not in the math. The balance comes in the narrative surrounding it. Yeah, and games with rules where you can have minions and hordes and stuff like that, for the kinds of games that you're playing there, that's exactly what I would hope for.
Also, just lift things from other systems. Like John was saying, great, figure out something, it won't be 1-to-1 because, Exalted you're rolling 30 dice, and World of Darkness you're rolling usually no more than 10. But things great, this is a group. 5 of them have twice as much hit point compared to 1 sort of thing. But yeah, definitely find ways to adapt.
No.
Just, yeah.
In a werewolf session that we had, this was a long time ago, I'm not really going to ruin much, but at one point 2 of the player characters were faced off against 30 soldiers, and one of them was like, oh, I could try this one thing, and I just let it work on all of them. Why not? Instead of grinding it out and figuring out exactly how many of those 30 were going to
save.
Just screw it.
Yep.
Screw it. In that particular point in time, it was more worth the narrative of we took out all 30 of them because they were never meant to be that much of a threat anyway. And that was an example of let's let the players feel like badasses, because why not? And then challenge them later on by dangling them over a lava pit. The apartment or the bridge fight?
Neither.
But in Requiem, it's going to take 30 dice, 2 roll checks in 45 minutes, but it's going to end in awesome. By the time that we were, rolling in 3rd edition, we could get our combats done in a reasonable amount of time. complication is definitely there, and if we ever chose to play Exalted again, we would have to really buckle down and learn the system again, because on stream, you want to make sure you know what you're doing.
And also, it's the kind of thing that would benefit from now being out for longer. There are more detailed charm trees and things, and I think we have a better understanding that we wouldn't put ourselves into a situation where we have 20 charms and all of them can only be used in this one context. So you're choosing between, or like within 3 contexts. So every time you want to choose an action, you've got 4 charms to choose from. Rather than being like, oh, well, I'm doing decisive damage, this charm. I'm doing withering damage, this charm. I think that it's the kind of thing that going into a new system, not understanding it the first time around, really can lead to, and we all did it. It was the same thing for me with social as Val. I was like, oh, social. Oh, well, I've got these 8 different things I could do. Which one is slightly more advantageous for this particular context? And that's just like, so slows you down because you always have choice paralysis.
It's a muscle too. When you're dealing with systems with different kinds of crunch, going back to an old kind of crunch means that you have to relearn stuff. I've met lots of different players who are quite decent at crunch, and then you put them in front of a different kind of crunch, and then they immediately start being like, this isn't what I'm used to, and then they freeze. And that's okay, but it does mean that for us, when we try something new, we want to make sure that we've tried it a bunch of times, because freezing on stream is a lot more embarrassing.
Yeah.
And it's a legitimate thing, and it's happened on our streams, it's happened on streams that I've seen other people do, where somebody gets visibly aggravated because they're like, I just don't know what to do at this point, or I don't know how to make the rules make sense. And that'll happen.
Yeah.
And you gotta be kind to yourself and allow for that, but you want to try to minimize that as much as you can.
Yeah. Like, early on, totally fair, it's part of learning the system, but if it keeps happening, then it's definitely a thing where, like, the table needs to take a step back and find a way to make sure that the game's fun. Because if it's not fun, why are you doing it?
Requiem has a question. How to work with players that have a tendency to play the same or similar characters every campaign, either in class or roles or role-playing elements, to branch out and try something different. So I'm going to say right off the bat that sometimes you don't. If somebody is very content playing a specific kind of character or an archetype or class or a personality or whatever, maybe that's okay. And you just accept it. And then if they try to join a game where you're like, this won't work, they don't play. It seems kind of weird. In the Robin's Laws to Good game mastering, one of the player types for them is the specialist, a player who is like, I want to play this thing. And they'll do whatever they can. They'll move heaven and earth in order to play that one thing. Common archetypes are, I want to play an assassin. Sometimes, I think the book called them ninjas, but like, it's closer, like, I just want to be able to somebody who's very sneaky and who can do a huge amount of damage in a burst. And that's what they want to figure out. Some people want to play princesses. Some people want to play catboys. Some people want, and they'll do whatever they can in order to play the thing that they want. And that's what they emotionally enjoy. Now, you can suggest to them they can try something else, but like, if that's what they want, you should let them do it, unless it's going to make you have less fun.
Yeah. Flower Boga says, but I want to be the rogue this campaign. You've been it for 6 campaigns now. So that's definitely the kind of thing that you'd have to look at your player dynamics and your table dynamics. And yeah, talk to the table, be like, great, there are other people that want to play rogues. Can you build a game where there's room to have multiple rogues? Will the table feel okay with there being multiple people with overlapping skill sets? And yeah, maybe you have to be like, hey, this campaign you cannot play a rogue. Would you like to be in this campaign and try something else? If not, I guess you're gonna have to sit this one out. Because yeah, it's using your word hole and being grown-ups about it. In a game where we only have 3 players, we've had to deal with this. All it takes is, in the storyteller system, all it takes is for 2 players to say,
I think I'm going to put 4 dots in etiquette, right? But if 2 players have done it, instantly they high five because they're like, great, we're team etiquette, or they snarl at each other because now it's like, but that was supposed to be my spotlight, and now you are going to take it from me. And this is the kind of thing that it's a word hole question. You deal with it now. This is part of the reason why now when we make characters, we do it together. It used to be that when we made characters, people would like come up with ideas and they'd contact me privately and we'd talk about it and stuff like that. And there'd be some communication between players. But now when we are making characters, it's very specific. We're all in the same room or in the same call when we do that, because this is the way to avoid those kinds of hurt feelings.
And then you can say, oh yeah, it's fine. I think it would be great if we're both really attractive.
Or if we're both a rune.
Yeah, we're both a rune. Or it could be like, no, okay, if you really want to be a rune, I'm going to play something completely different. But it's not nice to show up to, like, you know, building the campaign and being like, oh, we were both thinking this was a niche. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to be the archery specialist because we have or the crafter.
Yeah.
And it turns out someone else has also built that, each thinking you were choosing a niche that's no longer a niche.
Yeah, you should have picked Mercy. We needed a healer. Why didn't you do it?
Yeah, why aren't you healing me?
I need heating.
Yeah.
So there's a certain amount of that we just kind of have to deal with, is that sometimes a player wants to play the same thing, and that's okay, let them. And sometimes you just have to be blunt and say, you can't. So either your options are play something different or play something else. And that's, by the way, that's okay. If here, Scott, for instance, Scott's way more into Eldritch horror than I am, and I think also I can speak for you, Kate. I think that, neither of us are that interested in that. If Scott decided that he wanted to start up a game and play an Eldritch horror game with Liz and with other players, I would be totally fucking fine with that. Now, I would be less fine if it meant that, like, he quit RPG Clinic.
Yeah.
But I don't have to be involved in every single one of his activities. And I also can say, hey, Scott, it's okay that you've chosen a game that I don't want to play. I'm just going to step back and let you do your thing. Instead of going to him and being like, but Scott, you chose a game that I don't want to play, so instead I want you to play Kids on Bikes. Like, although Kids on Bikes can't have Eldritch horror elements.
I mean,
bad
any
example.
game can,
right.
Really, if you try hard enough. But
sure.
Yeah.
But like, or like Last Train to Busan. Or, why are we forcing him to do things that we want? We don't. When we come up with games that we're interested in playing, one of the things that we have to take into account is, what are we all going to be interested in? There's plenty of games out there that I've been like, that's fucking cool. No one else is going to be interested in this but me. And then I'm just like, I don't get to play that game on RPG Clinic, and that's okay.
So Flower of August asks, you're saying that part of the nerd code telling you to always include everyone isn't compulsory. I think there's a difference, perhaps, or a line between, if you try to make everything like accessible for every single person, there is talking about like accessibility, there's things like, can it be good for people who are hard of hearing and have difficulty with sight? Those used two completely opposite, like, you work harder on one versus the other, and so there are ways of making it accessible to both, but usually that's doing twice as much work, instead of being like, oh, well, we have one hard of hearing player, so we're going to make sure that we have more visual cues. And it's the same thing with games, is that if you've got people that really want Eldritch Horror and people that, like me, that are not safe with it, well, then the choice is don't play Eldritch Horror, or don't have the player that isn't comfortable with it play in a game with Eldritch Horror.
Yep.
Like, there's some things that are just going to be incompatible.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
but you cannot, the average of everything is nothing.
So Zablica has brought up exactly what I was about to bring up, which is the 5 geek social fallacies.
Yeah, he was typing them.
So in 2000, there was an essay by Michael Sullivan Wilson. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I apologize. Which lays out 5 social fallacies that people in the geek community tend to be prone to. It's not a perfect essay. And admittedly, this is 25 years old now, so probably thinking has changed since then. By the way, hi, Theological Bell. Good to see you. But one of them is the idea of ostracizers are evil and friends do everything together. So the fifth fallacy, friends do everything together, very specifically, is the idea that if we don't all include everybody at all times, then we are bad. And that's not correct. That is absolutely not correct. I like hockey. I like watching hockey. Kate also enjoys watching hockey. Scott and Liz couldn't care less.
Yep.
We're not about to start being like, hey, Scott and Liz, you have to come over and watch hockey with us, because otherwise then you're being bad friends.
Yeah.
And in the same way, if we say we're going to watch hockey, they can't accuse us of being bad friends because we've decided to do something that wouldn't necessarily interest them.
Yeah, like if it was the playoffs and our home team was in the finals and it was, a Sunday night after game, we'd be like, hey, you're welcome to, hang out, but we are going to be watching this hockey game. And so they could choose to hang out if they wanted to spend the night and do their own thing for a couple hours, or they could be like, no, we'll go home, we'll hang out next week.
Yep.
Both are fine. But we wouldn't force them to sit down and watch the game. That doesn't have to be being friends. That's not requisite.
Yeah. So when it comes back to the original question, when the question is how to work with players that have a tendency to play the same, you can definitely encourage them to stretch out, to spread their wings, to try something different. That's fine. The fallacy in this question, and I'm not saying that you made a mistake, Requiem, I just mean the fallacy in this question is expecting that somebody should do these things. You don't have to. If it's going to make the game less fun for you, then don't do it. But then also accept that if that's a limitation of yours, other people are not bound by your limitations.
Yeah. Not every game is going to work for every person, and that can even be true of your small friend group. And so it's just about negotiating what the best solution is, and it's going to be a compromise because multiple people, multiple opinions, multiple life experiences.
Zablika, you mentioned something here, and I'm just going to bring it up because it's going to be something quick that I can go by. Troyan is British because Liz wanted to play a character who was British and wanted to play with the different voice that comes with. Now, one thing that I have always told my players, and, for good or for ill, is I've said, when you're doing something, just understand that, making that choice, you are also going to be watched. So be comfortable with whatever you're doing, because, if you decide that you want to put on an accent, that's great, but then you are opening yourself up to criticism from the internet. So that's one. But then also, if it's going to be something that will take over your mental load, consider not, because I don't really think that it's a great thing to do for everybody at the table if 95% of your thinking process is like, what slang should I use in this particular situation?
Yeah, Patches, if I were, a skilled accent user, would have a South of London accent. And in my mind, that is who she is, and I think it would have helped with certain aspects of the flavor of her character if I was able to convey that. But I went into our session 0 or first session and I was like, nope, this is not going to be viable for me, so I just spoke as myself.
And that's okay. The other thing, and this is something that is a delicate situation, so this is a word hole situation for sure. Zablika, I'm just bringing it up because it's something interesting to talk about, not because I think that you were doing that. But if you show up to the table and you want to put on an accent, that's cool. Go for it. Enjoy it. But understand that you are also affecting the table. If I show up and I'm doing an accent and it's real bad and everybody can't get pissed if I'm doing an accent, right? Like, if that's how I'm talking the entire time, people will throttle me like 4 minutes into the game. Understand that your choices affect everyone else at the table, and if you're making a genuine effort, that's one thing, but also they might be able to tell you, look, maybe next game, practice on your own first before you do that, because if what you're doing is so distracting that everybody else just can't get past it, that's something. It's like the equivalent of my showing up to a game and being like, I want to play a woman for this session. And everyone will be like, oh, okay. And then all I do is I walk in and be like, boy, I sure have breasts. I'm bouncing boobily into the room now.
I think it comes down to what are your motivations? Are you doing it because you think that it's a layer of flavor that will support the character and enhance the experience? Or are you doing it because you want to be cool? Because those are two very different things. It's the same thing with being, the blind swordsman. What else are you? If all you've figured out for your character is that they're going to have this cool accent, you need to go back to the drawing board and make them an interesting person who happens to have an accent, maybe.
Yeah. I have dealt with a lot of blind swordsmen.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I've had to deal with more than one is already kind of...
Yeah, it's a trope.
It's a trope. And the best thing for that trope is that twice this was in a live-action role-playing experience from somebody who was sighted.
Mm-hmm.
And literally the fact that they were playing a character who could not see made no difference at all at any time.
Yeah.
And then at that point I'm like, why are you doing this? And it's because they've seen a character exist in something, they want to emulate it, but then not understanding that it's a lot less cool for everybody else. Because what they're looking for is to have all the other players be like, oh, you're so cool.
Yeah.
Because you are blind, but you can also hit things.
Wow, how do you do that?
And that lasts about 30 seconds.
Tell me all the time.
Yeah.
Flower of August. Thank you so much. Now I can drop my Montreal accent. Phew. It's been so difficult to maintain all this time.
Goodness me, I didn't know how I was going to keep taking it, but now that you're here, let's take a look at another question.
Standard American.
Oh, were we supposed to do standard American accents? Oh, shit. All right.
No, we could do British too.
Okay. I mean, Neanderthal, I would think that's amazing if you were to play that, and you should do it. Requiem asks, how would you create a murder mystery arc that is interesting, engaging, and not predictable? This is not at all linked to me having trouble running murder mystery arcs that lacked engagement and were predictable. Learn how to write a murder mystery.
Yep. Yeah, which is hard.
It's hard as fuck.
Yep. Find a pre-written one. Honestly, this is the kind of realm where, unless you are really skilled at it, if you want it to be engaging and not predictable, that is a skill. That is a deep, deep, deep skill that if you do not have, there's nothing wrong with going and buying pre-made, going out reading pre-made events and then replacing, the name The Mistshire with Flowerland because you want it to be unicorns. But yeah.
So there's a backup that you can have. The problem is that when we think murder mystery, what we're thinking of is something that's very tight, very controlled, like a murder mystery novel or a film. And that, you have a reveal and you can see the 7 flashback sequences where everything was known from the start. Mm-hmm. Nobody has complained about the mysteries that I've put forward, which is create a cast of characters, put them out there, and then imply that one of them isn't what they say they are, and just let it go.
So many tinfoil hats.
No, but just at that point, let it go. Let the players create their own fucking tinfoil hat mysteries and let them investigate them, because something that's interesting to them will work. If you try too hard to create a mystery and you've I've dropped all kinds of clues and here it all is, the thing is that is absolutely something that you can do, but probably not on the fly. That's something that's going to take preparation, and Kate is right. Maybe use a pre-existing one, which is one way to learn how to do it. Mm-hmm. But if you just want to have mystery, create the uncertainty and then just let the players create the circumstances surrounding it. You can run alongside them and then figure out where you can catch up. The one thing that I will do to encourage people not to fuck with it too much is, if your players figure out the answer, think long and hard before you change the answer just because they did. This is something that happened in Westworld. They rewrote a season of Westworld because they were like, yeah, somebody on Reddit figured out what we were doing, so now we have to change it because otherwise people will know the answer. No, you fucking don't. That's just a couple of people on Reddit who have a theory. And the fact that you had to rewrite it meant that you were giving up on something that was probably legitimately good. And sometimes let your players feel like they're smart, that they figured something out.
Mm-hmm. Like everyone's saying, if they figure out the answer, that means you did it correctly because your story makes sense. Like, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that if you want sort of a rock solid, really difficult, hard to solve murder mystery, then that's why I'm saying go to a pre-written one, because yeah, chances are that you winging it might let them figure it out, and that's okay. But if that's not what you want, and if that's not what your players want, because also players, if you sit there for 5 sessions and you get very little distance towards finding the answer, that may not be fun. You may feel like a genius GM, but that doesn't mean that the players necessarily feel like it's worth engaging with, and they'll just be like, okay, well, I guess this village is gonna die of the plague because we can't figure it out. Anyway, there was this really cool NPC in the last town. Can we go talk to them?
Hey, Zodiac Jack, by the way. Thanks for the
Hello.
follow. Yeah, this is also something, just because we still have a whole bunch of questions left in the hopper. Although we can go a little longer.
Yeah.
We don't have to do a 2-hour. Figure out if your players are actually the right people for a murder mystery. Yeah. There's 2 things that can happen that will really ruin your fucking day if you've put a lot of effort into it. 1, they hate mysteries. Yeah. Definitely happens. I once wrote an entire ARG to announce a game that I was going to run, a LARP, and it got torpedoed because all that happened was one person stood up and said, I hate ARGs, I don't want to do this, sat back down, and then it took the wind out of everyone's sails, and the game never happened. And I had spent a lot of time figuring out how I was going to do this, and then I just was crushed by it. So figure out if they want mysteries, but also figure out if they're the players who will also just try to short circuit the mystery. That they'll be like, I'm not going to think too hard about this. I think it's the butler. I'll go kill the butler. And you're like, but the butler's not that. And then they go ahead and kill the butler. And then you're like, well, the mystery is now kind of fucked.
Yeah, because the butler had the information and they're dead or whatever. Yeah, there's that. There's also just, like, there are players that don't mind a bit of mystery, but you've got to make it so that the characters can roll to solve it if the player can't put 2 and 2 together, because they're playing, someone with 5 dots in intelligence and 4 dots in enigmas, but, they're just a normal fucking human being. How dare they not be a genius? So if it's something that their character would be able to solve, let them roll to solve it, let them roll to make progress. Yeah. Because it's the same thing with social characters. Not everyone's perfectly eloquent. Not everyone can throw something off the top of their head. Like people earlier in the chat mentioned what I said during the last session and the session before as Macris. Like, that did come out of nowhere for me. Very easily.
You're a sass monkey and you know how to deliver it.
Yes, but like, it's not something that I sat and prepared, and that it comes from years and years of doing this, but also the stars aligned to the right way at the right time for me to be able to convey that clearly. There have also been times where I'm like, fuck, my point is you bad because you're being contradictory and killing babies.
Yeah.
But I have all these dots, so roll. Wow, 12 successes. I said that beautifully.
Gwen mentioned, I've been interested in doing a Columbo where the players witness a crime before all the suspects and motives are introduced. Maybe like a magical scry that has gone awry, and maybe it inspires them to investigate. See, that's an example of a murder mystery where you don't have to make it a complicated jigsaw puzzle that they have to put together. Instead, it's, let's go figure out why this happened. Mm-hmm. And all it needs, maybe you approach someone, they're like, I'm not going to talk unless you get me 3 salty fish. Mm-hmm. And you're like, fuck, okay, and then you go off and find 3 salty fish. Like, it feels like a very JRPG trope, but you can still unravel a mystery without it needing to be a puzzle and still enjoy doing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Prove that they're the bad guy mysteries are often easier than find out who the bad guy is. Or, alternately, prove that they're the good guy instead of the bad guy. Everybody is like, that a murder happened. lock them up, and you're like, yeah, murder happened, but there was extenuating circumstances. The person might come to you and plead and say, like, look, I know I'm innocent, please help me. And then all you have to do is just prove innocence. There's a lot of ways that you can do that, and then maybe the rest of the scenario, the rest of the mystery, just comes along organically. This is a Kate question, if I ever seen one. Osab's asking, when building an overlay for a new system, what is your process for deciding what to automate or display and what to leave on the character sheets?
I mean, that is in consultation with you, though. So it starts with learning the system, figuring out which stats are going to change often, and which ones are narratively interesting. There are some, like in Werewolf 5th, for example, there is Haradon and Hoglosk that are narratively interesting, but they do not change often. So they are the kind of things that we can just mention. And there's only so much screen real estate, and there's only so much ability for the eyeballs and the brains to parse information. It's something I'm struggling with a friend who's trying to make a board game. And everything's numbers, and people are getting confused between, why is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but this is 2, 6, 7, 10. So it's about figuring out what is interesting for the audience to stay on top of moment to moment, without too much visual clutter. So far, it usually comes down to about 3 stats. Sometimes I can find a place for a 4th, but that's kind of the cap. So in most, it's health and willpower. And sometimes there's another thing, like in Werewolf, it's our forms, or it's we do have a display when we're in frenzy, or when we've lost the wolf. These are particular effects that are important, that if someone tunes in right away and realizes we're in combat, they're like, oh fuck, she's only got 1 health level available, she's in frenzy. Meanwhile, Dante's lost the wolf, and Troyan has no willpower left. She's like filled up her willpower track. Oh god, they're in trouble. Versus like, oh, their stats are all fine. They've started this fight, they didn't roll well, but like they've got all their health levels, all their willpower, they're good to go. It's a shorthand for the audience. And it's also a question of just how straightforward is it to function. But yeah.
Kate is a tech wizard. We already know that. We've established that. She does work with me to figure out what goes on those things. So sometimes if a decision is made on screen and you complain about it, it's not always Kate's fault. Maybe it's mine. So you cover pretty much all of it. One of the things that I'll point out is that on a stream you have to figure out, what are you trying to sell? On some streams, what you're selling is the narrative of the game. My preference when I talk about RPGClinic is that the thing that we're trying to deliver is not a narrative. What we're trying to deliver is 4 friends having a good time. When people are watching, I want them to root for Kate and Scott and Liz as much as they're rooting for Troyan and Macris and Dante. And me to another extent, right? Like, we're part of it. That's why we start the stream with our preamble. That's why we when we upload the video, we don't cut things out. Now, there's some people for whom that is not what they're looking for, and I respect that. I also don't have the time to edit all of our fucking game, so I don't. But we're giving you the entire experience. So one of the things that I like to put on overlays are things that help somebody who's like, oh, I'm interested in this game. What are some things that would be interesting to know about this game? Which is why when we do things like health levels, we could easily do a health thing where we have a big bar, and that when somebody's health, when they get hit, the bar starts to drop. But since that's not how it's represented on a character sheet, that's less useful for somebody who's trying to learn about the game. It might be visually more interesting, but since it's not part of the experience, that's not what we're going to put on screen. And also, like you said about clutter, this is the star, right? It is not up here. Now, up here still matters. Absolutely, it still makes a difference, but that's not the star. And so I don't want to put so many things on screen that we're not paying attention to that anymore. My biggest regret when it comes to our setup is that we have a lot of wasted real estate space on the bottom. And we find ways to use it with the maps and info boxes, which we don't use often enough because I often just don't have the mental load to be able to always point at it, although it's nice to have. And we have the chat down there, which is great. Like that's fantastic. But we don't have a setup. If we had 4 players, then we'd probably do 1-1-1-1-1.
Yeah,
similar to how Full Party did it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the overlay is something that I don't want to distract too much from the actual people who are playing. If your stream does not include the moneymakers right here, then you might want to consider doing other things. Pinky Pact makes great use of their overlays to have a map, which is available, which doesn't change a whole lot sometimes, and that doesn't need to.
No.
It has the PNG tubers on the bottom, which I think is, again, like I mentioned,
critical
for audio understanding and for getting immersed. But they also have things like rotating character sheets that you can see of like, oh, this person is this class with this level. If we did that, that would be such a distraction from the faces that I don't think we'd want it. We've considered it.
Yeah.
The technology is actually relatively easy.
Well, in Riverwild, we did have a rotating carousel, and some of the feedback, like, it was just always rotating. Some of the feedback was that it was distracting, despite the fact that it was the same 12 slides or whatever. Just, it was... Because our faces are there, there's a lot more going on than just lighting up when someone's talking. It's like a thing that draws the eye away. And that's also something in like visual design, and also like it's something that we think about in our own work in games and in theater and in film and television. It's about making sure that the focus is where it needs to be. And that, when there's a moment like when we take damage, John asked if we could have it glow a little bit when we change our stats. And that was something that I was like, okay, let me figure out how to do that. And I was able to do that for Werewolf. And that's why it grows rather than just jumping. It's like to give a bit of a visual indication of, oh, look at this for a second, and then it's stagnant. It doesn't flash, it doesn't shift, it doesn't have cool colors or patterns, because then the information is there when you want to look at it, but it doesn't draw the eye.
But frenzying, for instance,
pulses. That's a big fucking deal.
But we don't frenzy often in the game. That's actually partly my influence. I don't call for frenzy rolls as often. Some people might say that I should offer it more. It's a style choice. But pulsing is important because that's an oh shit moment. If somebody's frenzying, there's almost nothing else that could make that be more important than that.
But it's still a gentle pulse. It's not flash, flash, flash. It's not a police siren. It's not a fire alarm. It's like a breathing pace sort of thing. It's a pulse, so that it's there and you do see it, but it is something that once you recognize it and you see that's happening, it isn't going to take as much attention as if it was flashing really fast. No. But it's frequent enough that you do notice it, that if you're looking, you can see that there's a pulse going on, and it's an indication of how important it is. That is a rare, big deal thing.
Yeah. So, in the end, when building an overlay, we have a lot of things to worry about. UI, user interfaces, and UX, user experience, is a huge element of the other aspect of my career, which is making video games. And it is something that there are people whose entire years of working on a game is literally just the things you see on screen that aren't part of the world that you're interacting with.
Like a little mini map. Yeah.
And it's not like we contact somebody and they put in 2 months of work and then they're like, yep, that's great, that's everything we need, and then they walk off. It is an incredibly important, intricate, detailed, and complicated thing that's part of it. So what we're doing here is we're trying, and we're iterating. The next campaign
Every
that we
game,
do, we'll try something else. We'll try something new. And but again, what is the focus? Figure out for your stream, what do you want to highlight? Because if it's combat, gotta have a combat map. Let us see the map. But for us, that's not important, so we don't do it.
And it's also just a question of what you're capable of handling. How much mental load do you have available? How much time and energy and effort do you have available to set it up? the first time to create it, to build it, and then how much mental energy and freedom do you have during the game to continue to keep it updated. That's also part of why we've, as players, switched over to handling our stats. We don't keep them updated on our character sheets anymore. It's just on stream because the technology is reliable enough, and it's then we aren't pressing a button and writing it down, or having John write it and we write it. Like, it's reducing the mental load for us in that it's happening in one place, players are controlling it, and John can see it.
For Changeling, I was the one updating the screen the entire time.
There was a point where we were using chat commands to increase and decrease our values at the very end.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the longest time it was just John.
It was just me. For Exalted's Nexus, I was the one doing
all of it.
All of it.
And Academy. No, Academy we eventually had our own.
Yeah. And the thing is, some of that useful, but it is a mental load. There are things that I actually had difficulty at some point letting things go. I was like, I don't want to make the players start focusing on other things. I'm used to it by now, and it is a distraction. So, but now that we've got it, we're lucky enough, thanks to your support, that everybody has a Stream Deck in front of them, or the equivalent. Is that now, based on Kate's tech stuff, it's just as easy as like, oh, I've gained a health level, boop. I've lost a health level, boop. And that means that it's the same mental load as what you would be doing if you're writing it on a character sheet.
Yeah, and there's no erasing necessary. Ha 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 ha. Better. So that might segue into the next topic. Is there anything I would have done differently, or not all of those were private game outside of stream? Definitely very different, very less, in that the amount of sort of hoops I have to jump through in order to make a crop happen of a specific distance on a health track. There just isn't actually good technology out there to do it exactly how I want it in intervals. To have the math done, like, oh, minus, plus, plus, plus. So, and that's just there so that it's visual for you and that it exists within OBS. If we were playing over Discord, it would be a bot. If we were playing around the table, maybe nothing. I know that for Daggerheart, I found that your hope track changes so often, like your hope quantity changes so often, that I was like, I will erase a hole in my character sheet within the first 5 sessions. So it's the kind of thing that I would get like a physical, like either a dry erase card, which we used for Avatar, which we used to keep track of certain stats that were changing all the time. Pips in a cup, as Ergwen mentioned, which we did for Exalted with our moats. Sorry for all of your ears, for all of Nexus. But yeah, like beads in a cup, or like a little website now that I know how to use JavaScript to actually be able to dynamically update values. And it's just checkboxes, right? It's like, oh, I have 6 hope boxes, check, 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 check. Or my Google Sheets that I've been doing for years is I'll make a digital version of a character sheet. So yeah, I would actually say most likely would be my Google Sheets character sheets, which don't take as much time or effort to develop or expand upon, but they allow me to do things like have checkboxes for health levels. And I figured out ways to make it a drop-down selection so that you can have an X or a slash or a dash or a star for the different types of damage.
Thing is, as you progress on your coding journey, there are other things. There are a lot of ways that you can put stuff on screen. Like there's ways that you could dynamically generate a website with color keying so that we could just put it transparently on the screen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to do it, but there's other things that we have to take into account. Stability is kind of the number one. The thing that aggravates me the most in a session was if something breaks.
Yeah.
Even if it's not something critical, if it's something like, I want to be able to show the map, and I push a button and the map doesn't show up, then that's frustrating, right? But I pushed a button. Thing is, the players rely on this stuff to keep track of their stats because they're not putting it on their character sheet. So if it breaks, and trust me, there's so many ways for these things to break, then that can be a real issue, because in the middle of game, being like, shit, did I have 3 willpower or 4 can make the difference.
Yeah. And that's why I wouldn't go to the same level of technology if we weren't streaming. Like, I would go with something like, especially something like Google Sheets, where it, like, auto-saves every 3 seconds, and you can always revert history, or press Control-Z or whatever to undo if you do something wrong. Yeah.
Requiem mentions that
Yeah.
one of the things that you can do is sheet protectors, or you can laminate character sheets. That's definitely something that you can do. I am going to caution you in 2 ways about that, just for what it's worth. One is that if you're doing something that can be easily erased, then it means that it can be easily erased unintentionally.
With a sleeve or whatever.
Right? It's like your sleeve, or at the end of the session, all you have to do is stack the character sheets up, and then you can erase everything. So that's just, I'm not saying don't do it, it's just be careful. And the second thing, if you're doing that, is that some players will be proper, and they'll like get their little cloth and they'll like rub it away, and someone will just take their thumb and go bleh, and then at the end they complain because they're covered in stuff. So just be a bit careful with that, but it is definitely a good way to do it. The thing is, the advent of digital tools makes this great. Depending on the game system, one of the things that we could look into also is automatic, right? Like the concept of actually when we did Edge of the Empire, we used an online app and we color keyed it and stuff so that we could put it on the stream that would automatically calculate how much of each of the 4 different fucking, god damn it, things that were symbols that were available on the dice. But there's also, like, D&D now has it where you can click once and it'll be like, here was your attack roll, here were the modifiers, here's how much damage you're doing, they had this resistance so it's halved, and here's how much bleh, and they can just vomit the answer at you. So there's ways for us to be able to do it depending on the system, and possibly you can code something that will automate the process. But automation isn't always desirable. Sometimes players want to fuck with it themselves.
It can be fun, click-clack, math rocks, etc. But also just the fun of not knowing and understanding. And I think that I think it's great to have automation and support and help to take that mental load off. But I think there is a certain level where it's doing everything for you and you don't really understand it. And you're just where you will always be at a level where you barely understand it. And therefore constantly be like, how do I attack? What is my damage? Why is my damage different? Oh, but my damage was so much better against the goblins we fought last week. Oh, right, I'm a ranger and it's my favorite enemy, and it just applied it automatically because it said goblin on the enemy that I clicked on. Yeah. Like, there's a level at which
you don't understand your own abilities.
Yeah, so I think that, like, taking the time to understand what's going on is useful and helpful if you plan to be going at it for more than a little while. If it's a one-shot, fuck it, let the machine do it. But yeah. Yeah,
I mean, Wolfram Alpha is a fantastic tool. I know somebody who failed Cal because they just did all their homework by just plugging it through Wolfram Alpha and then didn't understand it when it was time to prove mastery.
Yeah.
And Neanderthal, this is an example of a company that's like, we have special dice, but you don't need them.
Yes.
Which I really appreciate. We just use D10s here. We could have bought werewolf dice. We had the option. We ordered the fucking book from goddamn States and it cost us $1 million to import. We could have tossed on a few dice sets along with it, but we chose not to. We didn't want to. And it has not made one lick of difference.
No.
As far as I can tell.
No. I mean, like, when we were first starting this session, the campaign, it was a little bit like, all right, in 5th edition, the target number is 6 to 10, as opposed to like 20th, where it was a roving target number, or Exalted, where it was 7 to 10.
Yeah.
So like, there's a little bit of adjustment, but I do feel like I prefer it for some reason. Maybe it's just that's what I'm used to and that's my habit. But compared that to having just like symbols, and it's like, oh well, I rolled a blank. Oh well. It's probably quicker to count your successes and failures if it's just symbols. But
at this point, you go so quickly that it doesn't matter.
No.
But this is an example of, hey, do you want to add on to your experience? You can buy these dice. And for some players, that's great. For some players, it's not, but you can make the choice, and it's great. For fantasy flight systems where they're like, you have to get these dice. No, we provided a chart for you to like sort of make it work, but it's ass.
Yeah.
Or you can use some of our dice rollers. It's just not the same. And I bounce off of companies that are like, in order to resolve things properly, you have to buy this thing that is honestly no better than what is commercially available. It's just complicated. That's no fun.
I stand by my opinion that FFG is a dice company that makes games that uses funky dice. Like with their many of their card games that they've put out, definitely with some of their role-playing games, it's just like they took, L5R from D10s and put it into their funky dice system and did not improve the player experience, in my opinion, as far as interacting with rules.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But some people really like the symbols, and especially with numbers, right? If you're like trying to add up, you're trying to count how many successes you got, but you've got a 7, an 8, and 9, and a 10. For some folks, that's a lot of mental load. So taking the numbers off of the dice and just having the symbols can actually be like an accessibility aid, and that's super cool too.
May I offer a lukewarm take? So Daggerheart, which is up behind Kate's left shoulder there. There it is.
Found it.
Daggerheart is a game that says, hey, we have D12s and we have a D20. D12s for players, D20 for GM, which I think is cool. And then it uses all the other polyhedral dice basically for damage rolls. And I kind of wish that they had the guts to just only have the two kinds of dice. I feel like they did that because they were like, hey, look, you already own the polyhedral dice. You can use them all. I just kind of wish that they didn't have to do that. But I understand it. You want to encourage people to get away from D&D, but you also don't want them to feel like they're wasting their time because, but I have all these other pretty dice. It would have been nice.
Yeah, I haven't played Daggerheart, but yeah, the fact that also every, I don't think it's every level, but it's every, proficiency or whatever, you just multiply the number of damage dice you do.
Yep.
So the difference between 1d10 and 2d10 is so huge. So I agree that just feels so enormous that I could go, versus the other person that goes from 1d4 to 2d4, the scaling just feels like it would...
I don't think it's...
So, I don't know. I haven't played the game, and I know everything else scales. They've done good math, but it definitely feels like they could have done the math differently and not kept the polyhedrals. Yeah. But, everyone has the polyhedral dice
People
sets.
like their click-clacks.
Use what you got. I do appreciate that, as opposed to being like, no, you're going to use this 5-sided, cardboard template that you can only print off if you pay us $20. So
Zablica wants to step in it.
Oh.
Any clue what was done to make Exalted 3rd Edition not fall apart under its own weight?
They didn't. It did. The cover fell off of one of our copies of the book.
But you'll notice that Exalted is sitting right between us. Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying that the entire Exalted development cycle and Onyx Path in general, that's a tricky subject to weigh in, and I'm not here to make judgment calls about, people delivering things on time or honoring contracts or, the rights of writers versus publishers. We're not touching that right now. What I will say is this. Exalted 3rd Edition has a lot of really cool ideas into it, but it got away from itself in a lot of ways. And there are parts of it that I think don't hold up at all, and I refuse to engage with it. The crafting system in Exalted 3rd Edition is got an idea at the core of it, which is let's encourage people to have something that they can meaningfully interact with crafting, and also so that they can't just craft their way into instant godhood right at the start of the game. And they made it way too complicated and way too obtuse. So I don't like it. Crucible of Legends has a different version of it, which I have yet to try, but... Yeah.
But it does seem like the question was literally about the physical composition of the book, which, they said even as they were producing it that it was hitting the upper limits of bookbinding technology or whatever for a book that large and at the price point that they could afford to mass produce it for the amount that it was pledged for, yada yada blah blah, it chunky.
Yeah. The real answer is that this is one of those rare situations in which I would have preferred there to be a book which just included charms and then the rest of the book.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I think D&D has over every other system is that they split up their books. I feel that way even sometimes with, like, most systems these days have half of the page content is charms, spells, abilities, whatever they're called. And I just feel like split the book in half. That just for physical weight, for ability to pass it around. And I know there's like costs and formatting and whatever considerations, but it's something that I would really, really prefer.
The danger is obviously cost.
Yeah.
It would be nice if I could say, hey, look, you can buy this book, but now it actually costs more because it's 3 different books, and of course the 3 separate bindings, the price goes up. It's not just per page.
Yeah.
There's also a certain elegance to being able to say, oh, do you want to play this game? Here is one book.
Yeah.
And you can enjoy it right away. There you go. The really critical issue that I'm running into, though, is that with Exalted 3rd Edition, the reason why I think the PDFs are the better things to get is that if I say, okay, look up your charm, that's a huge-ass book for you to, boom, open up, find the thing in the index, which the index is longer than some role-playing games are. And then you finally, and then you have to swap back, and the book is just so large that you're asking that binding to complain. Whereas in a PDF, you can just do a Control F and then look for it.
And I think that's something Daggerheart did well, is that they have the one book, but that came I know they have a separate set that doesn't come with it, but the, like, main normal set comes with the cards. So that as much as I believe they have all the whatever abilities listed in the book, the cards are there, so it's sort of a chunk of the book that you can ignore, and your players can have access to it. And I know more and more games eventually develop these, and it gives them a chance to do errata on them.
Yep.
But yeah.
Requiem says some companies split the books just to make more money. I'm convinced that this is a lot of what Wizards of the Coast is doing. Wizards of the Coast is trying to essentially appease their shareholders with a lot of the decisions that they're making.
Right now, yes, but I feel like...
Oh, I definitely still... Here's the thing. I don't like D&D a whole lot anyway, so this is kind of a weird point for me to make, but... I feel like you could strip a lot of information from the DMG and put it into the player's handbook, and you can eliminate the DMG entirely.
Combo it with the Monsters Manual.
Yeah.
The
Monsters Manual, I think, does kind of need to be its own book,
Yeah.
because D&D relies on that math.
Yeah.
And then that book would be too much of a chonker. But, like the 2014 DMG is basically, there's no point in having it. It's got like some like specifics of like how to build an encounter, and you could put that easily in either the Monster Manual or in the player's handbook.
Or like a magazine-sized inclusion.
Yeah, and magical items.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you need. And so that book exists just to add $40 to the cost, or whatever, however much it is. And that's frustrating for me. What they used to do back in the day for before they ended up having the Monsters Manual is that they actually had binders, and that you would just buy the pages that you needed and put it into the binder. And that is another way, like, I think a lot of players could really use, and we have in the past, printed out the things that are important to them, put it in a binder that then they can just, oh, I need to reference something for my character. Boom, here are the 20 pages that I need instead of the 450.
Yeah, I've definitely done that. I have like the like advanced rules or whatever that they have in a separate PDF on the website for 5th edition I have printed out. And definitely like for other characters and other things, I'll print like the 2-page spread for my class or my kith or my whatever.
Yeah. How do you simulate your economy in real time? You load up a game of Civ next to it. And there's one other thing, which, we're adults.
Play an artificer.
Yeah, we're adults. We don't have the same thing to deal with. Is that it also can be really fucking disappointing when somebody is like, oh, do you want to try role-playing? Oh, I got you a D&D book. And they get you, like, I don't know, Tasha's Cauldron.
Yeah.
And you're like, this isn't, you need the base game to play. But then you find out that you actually need 3 books to play instead of 1, and then parents can be like, oh shit, which is why they have things like the starter pack.
Yeah, like this is why I just want it to be shrink wrapped together with like a little thin cardboard sleeve to hold the 2 pieces together.
Yeah.
And be like, this is the game, but it just comes in 2 separable parts for the sake of physical ease.
Back when I worked in a video game boutique store a million years ago, I would have to ask everybody who's coming in, do you have this? Because this was during the time of the GameCube, the Xbox, and the PlayStation 2. And people would come in and be like, oh, my son or daughter wants this game. And I'd be like, great. Do you have the system that plays it? Because a lot of times people just wouldn't know. Role-playing is becoming more and more mainstream these days, but that doesn't mean that it's easy for people to figure out. And it also suffers a little bit from the whole Nintendo language, where somebody will come in and be like, can I get a D&D? And you're like, but that's one game. And there's so many different. They're just lucky enough that they've become the de facto standard.
Yeah, but they'll be like, yeah, my kid wants to play the D&D about vampires, and you're like, oh, what do you mean? Yeah.
So this is something that I find actually a lot of the World of Darkness does quite well. You have a core book. You can run tons of games off the core book. We ran Werewolf successfully off it. Now we've started to add some other things from other books just because it was too cool not to.
Yeah.
But like we didn't need it.
No.
We didn't need it. Changelings, same thing. I own a lot of Changeling books, and not just these. I've owned more than these, and not lost them. I moved, and I had to sell them. I have them in PDF. It's great. I don't need them. You can run a lot of these games without any. Scion's another kettle of fish. Scion was deliberately released as like we can parse this out in 3 books, but like a lot of the World of Darkness games you can just get the core, and then when you like it and you decide that you want more, you can add on to it, which I think is a better model, because some of them I won't need it. Like they release a lot of like city books at times, like Chicago by Night, and I'm like, I'm not running a game in Chicago.
I'm good. Yep.
So I don't buy it.
I mean, it was that way with D&D 3.5. Like, they were constantly putting out new books and new expansions. They had, like, the sand setting and the storm set, like, the ocean setting and stuff. And, like, those were great if you wanted to make a game set on a ship in the ocean. Yeah. And there was, like, all kinds of new creatures that you could fight and special spells and extra abilities to do with navigating. But, like, if you aren't doing that, you don't need that book. And I feel like that's something that specifically Exalted Third was just trying to cover everything.
Except then now they've been releasing things like all the different splats, like Dragon-Blooded, Sidereals, and et cetera,
exactly.
et cetera.
So there still is more beyond that monstrosity. Yeah.
But what we also have to take into account for D&D is that they started releasing like rules updates in some of these extra books.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of gets to be a problem, because you could come in and say, I've made a character, and my character uses these better rules that have since come out, and then they'd be like, but I don't own that book, so I don't. So it got kind of confusing. It's why they sort of released their 2024 edition, which I do think is the better edition to buy.
There's still people now, like there's the same fucking game that was trying to start 2 years ago that has had 1 session so far, that, you know, the DM is like, well, I don't have the 2024 rules, so we're using 2014. And a whole bunch of people are like, oh, I don't have the 2014 rules.
Yep.
So, I mean, to be fair, he started trying to run the game before the 2024 rules came out.
Yeah.
Scheduling.
And as much as they say they're compatible,
there's enough differences that it just,
So you run into some difficulties there, but I think overall it's just a game that is getting better and better, and it's a game that's getting further and further away from the thing that I want to play. Doesn't mean it's bad. Go watch Pinky Pact. Speaking of Pinky Pact, from Gwen herself, as a storyteller, how do you handle dead end or painting yourself into a corner situations where your story is flowed, but where you brought the players to isn't exciting to you anymore or isn't turning out the way you thought? Couple of ways to do this. 1, end the game. That's okay.
Yep.
That's one of the ways that you can do it. The story is been enjoyable. The players are enjoying themselves. They got to a point where they're like, where you specifically are feeling like, well, this isn't what I was signed up for. Engineer the end of the game. Start again. So that's one way to do it. That's not necessarily the best way, but it's a way that I think a lot of people don't consider until it's too late, until they're severely burned out on the game, and then they just like quit or suffer. Don't suffer. Don't suffer for your role-playing games. It's not worth it. So that's one thing that you could do, because the next game is as easy as another one, right? No, Gwen, we know that this is dealing with your current campaign right now. I get it. This is a consult.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
we're here for you.
Yeah. You should make them kiss and then end the game. There you go.
The other things that you can do is what we would call in fiction writing, you call a twist, where you say this thing that everybody expected about the universe no longer is true. So most of them are related to each other. Yeah.
Make them kiss the ones they aren't related to. Come on.
Yeah. So one of the simplest ways of saying it is that, say it's a sea campaign and everybody was like, yeah, great, we're out at sea all the time, and you're like, fuck, I didn't intend for them to be out at sea all the time. Blow up their boat. Somebody dumps a lot of silica gel packets into the ocean, and now the ocean's completely dried up and they can't sail anymore. Have a magical effect happen that kills wind, and so nobody can sail anymore. Or if you don't want to just take away something that they enjoy, give them something else to focus on that they like even more. Okay, so they sail all the time. Well, now their homeland is experiencing a massive civil war, and the person who's engineering it is their old enemy from session 2. So they have to run home and get it. They got to fix their homeland. They care about their homeland more than they care about gallivanting around on a ship. You dangle a carrot somewhere else.
Create water. Is that what you're implying? Because that's hilarious in my mind. Whatever you meant. Yeah.
It's
1 gallon at a time.
If the story is flowed to a place where you're not excited, ending the story is a legit solution. Another solution is to throw a wrench in the works, and if the players are incompatible with that, then it's at that point it's word hole time, and it might be about like, I'm not feeling this anymore. When we were playing Star Wars, I wasn't feeling it. At a certain point, the game was spiraling out of a control of where I felt like I was enjoying myself. We've spoken about this before. Some of that was systems. A lot of it was systems. So much of it was systems. But some of it was also like, as player characters, none of you seem to be aligned with, like, you all have different goals. The goals are not goals that I find particularly interesting. I just spoke to them and we ended up ending the game.
Yep.
It was a way to deal with the problem because I was recognizing that I just wasn't having fun. In that case, I wrote myself into a corner. And the best way for me to deal with it was to hit the ejector button and just break through the ceiling and then land in a different game. But otherwise, introduce a twist would be my recommendation. You can get your players hyped about something. If you look like you're excited about this, they are more likely to be excited about it. If you introduce a twist and you're doing so reluctantly, like, okay, so you're in the ship, but like, you know, there's news that's come from your homeland, and they seem to be having some issues. But it's not that serious. You don't have to go if you don't want to. Then they may not.
Are you okay?
Yeah, they may not react. But if you come back and then you're like, you see a mushroom cloud way off in the distance, and somebody like your childhood best friend flops up over the side of the gunwale and lands on the deck, and their last words as they look into your eyes is, you know, your father told you, and then dies, and you know, and you're like, and this is amazing, and then you see that it's the talk of the town, and everybody wants to talk about it, and even the grimy old sea dog who refuses to leave the poop deck just walks up to you and says like, "Cole blimey, I wish that we were over back home," and then you're like, "Oh wow, I should have worked on that accent a little more." If you're excited, they'll get excited about it. Or take a break.
Yeah.
Play something else for a
Yeah.
bit and then see if that recharges you.
Yeah.
What about
Also
you?
an option. Yep, that all sounds good. Yeah.
And to cap it off, what is the most cringe character concept that ever entered one of our games or heard about in other games? Now, the definition of cringe matters here.
Yeah, for sure. Because all that comes to mind is just occasionally I'll see questions on various social media relating to World of Darkness, etc. And it's just, I can't even begin to care. Most things surrounding Mage, it's just like, oh yes, if I combine this sphere with that sphere, I can totally, like, you know, get all the ladies. And I'm like, that's your idea of fun, go do it. I don't care. And to me, the idea of caring so much with such a silly goal just isn't for me. It's just completely different world of what I find entertaining.
So I have a few answers.
But yes,
there's
also blind
yeah,
swordsman.
There's straight up cringe. I once had somebody who showed up to a LARP and their entire character concept was I'm blind. And wasn't even a blind swordsman, just I'm blind.
Cool.
And I was like, no, that's not it. But then another storyteller is like, I approved it because I want them to play and we'll make them make a new character afterwards. But he literally sat down on a couch and he kept turning to people and saying, hi, I'm blind. And they'd be like, do you have a name? And it just wouldn't happen. I have had a character concept that I've encountered more than once that I have hated, except when played by somebody who did it so really interestingly, is the person who just wants to fuck everything that moves. The like, I just want to see how many partners I can rack up. Gets really frustrating after a while. Because it's clear that they're not trying to play the game in good faith. They're trying to play a dating sim.
Yeah.
And it's good for laughs, but if it's a long-form campaign, that can suck. The thing is, playing somebody who's a Lothario, someone who's just like, I leave a trail of broken-hearted people in my wake, but I have a goal that I have to do, then that becomes far more interesting. And as much as we joke sometimes about how you have to like catch one of every tribe or one of every auspice or whatever, I never get the impression that your sole goal in the game is to like bed people.
No.
And that's been frustrating. The other thing that I'll say that it is cringe for me is people who play tonally dissonant characters. And that's on me. I have had times where I'm like, okay, I have a game and I want this game to be a fun adventure for everybody, and then somebody comes up with a like total joke character, and I'm like, you're clearly more focused on the joke than you are on the rest of the game. That can be an issue, and that really like hurts me. Or a serious game and somebody comes in with a comedy relief character, and that's on me. I have to be, well, I am now, but at the time I had to be better about saying like, I don't think this is appropriate for the kind of game that we're going for. I get that it's interesting and fun for you, but I don't think that it's going to promote the game that we're trying to go for.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes there are folks that write 10 pages of backstory and they've really put their heart into it and they feel like they've done something really great and they think it's fantastic, and they're not a writer, you know, and it's actually the same concept as something that was in a popular film 2 years ago, just not half as well written.
Yeah. It's one block of text, there's no paragraphs.
And like, good for you. I'm glad you had fun writing that. It's not actually going to amount to an interesting character to play with and interact with.
Yeah.
And that can be tough. That can be tough to navigate.
Yep.
I think that it's the cringiest thing is just when it's not going to contribute to the room.
How about orphans?
I mean, Disney does it all the time. The only way to have an interesting character is for them to not have parents. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If you have no attachments to the world, nobody who you care about, I instantly think that your character is not going to be very fun to play with. And
But that's fair too. But everyone's characters are orphans, so she doesn't care if she leaves town. My characters tend to have family because I don't have my own. But yeah, I think that, if it's just like, yeah, that's a fact, that's great. But if your whole character is, I'm an orphan, boo-hoo. It's the same thing with just being a blind.
Yeah.
Blind what? I'm a blind.
Weirdness mentioning, I used to think that you had to write massive backstories because everyone around me did it. Then I learned most STs just want 4 to 5 bullet points to use as a prompt. Yeah, I would much rather have a conversation with you and ask a few questions and get those answers and maybe get some bullet points. Because as you said, writing interesting prose is harder than a lot of people think. Writing an interesting paragraph is a lot easier than writing 1,000 words, which is easier than writing 10,000 words. And I honestly, if I feel like it's a chore, instantly I don't want to do it. When it comes to, it's not, and like you said, it's okay if you want to play a character who is an orphan, but just have something beyond that and have something that the character can believe in. Fridging people just as character motivation it's kind of happened a lot. Neanderpaul asking if I could be a player in my own story, which werewolf would I make? If we're talking about the current story, it would be tempting to say Galliard, just because that's the auspice that I've played the most often. It's the auspice I am. I am a storyteller at heart. I would play Philodox because I was about to say superior. It's a little... it's technically the correct word, but it is not the polite word. I am experienced in werewolf, and my players weren't at the time of starting. Now they are. But I had played a lot of werewolf before, and Philodox is one of those things that I could have helped kind of guide players along to be like, okay, well, this is how it works in werewolf society, and that would have helped. What are you nodding at?
The best auspice.
Yeah, Philodox is the best auspice.
Yeah, facts.
This
is just
as
facts.
We've learned.
Last session. Facts.
And so I would have played Philodox, and in terms of tribe, I probably would have tried to play one of the tribes which is newer to the game. A tribe that is fundamentally different from the tribes I've known before. Like Glasswalkers, fundamentally the same. Bonars, different. Not so different, but there's a difference to Bonars. A lot of the whole, like, there's only 2 tribes that bother being in the city is a good thing that we got rid of that. But, like, for instance, the Black Furies, we're actually out of music. This is the first time that we've
run so long.
Exhausted it. Black Furies are so different than what they were before, and yet still contain some elements which are very much core to them, that's an interesting thing for me to try and play. And that they're not now specifically focused on women. They're now focused on injustice, even though the core of it is still very similar. That's an interesting thing. Things like Gale Stalkers or the Ghost Council are tribes that I find are interesting because I've never played one of those before this game, right? So that would have been interesting. But I would have considered playing, if let's say that I had to pick right now, and I wasn't going to pick something new, I would have played a Silent Strider Philodox.
Nice.
I know Silent Striders, and I think they're neat, but they have fundamentally changed in that they're now not just like the Egypt tribe. But I would have played a Philodox that some people would be like, yep, we really need to use you because you're an impartial person because you're not of us, but also go the fuck away. You bring bad omens to us all the time. So
nice.
There's that. Theological Bear, I'm going to encourage you to hold on to that question because we're 30 minutes over time and we should probably bail.
We're also out of music, so either we're restarting the playlist or we're ending.
Yep. Requiem, same thing about Kith and Changeling. So there's that. And Arkan, play a Black Fury anyway, dude.
Do it.
Like, go for it. One of my favorite characters that I played was a Black Fury. Of course, it was online, so it's a lot easier for suspension of disbelief. But see, there you go. All right. anything that you want to point out? What's going on this week?
Tomorrow I might be doing another stream where I am doing some 3D rendering of my brother's future home. I believe next time it will be the attic and maybe even the basement, so that would be tomorrow afternoon. Check the Discord for details. Tuesday, I'm not sure. I know that streams were off this weekend for Cat House, but I think there'll be some more Method Madness this week. Check the Discord. Same thing with Punchy and Drew Crew. I think they're back on. How about anything else during the week?
Well, this Sunday, you'll just have to wait and see, but it will be Montreal by Moonlight. It will be interesting. And I'm looking forward to it.
101.
Thanks everybody for being here. You peppered us with a lot of really great questions. Super handy for everyone for that. I really appreciate that. Is there Pinky Pact?
Might be.
Let us know if there's Pinky Pact today.
Yay!
There is. So in
90 minutes.
90 minutes, twitch.tv/Pinky Pact. Go watch an excellent stream and look at all of the hot characters in that game. They're all fucking hot. Apparently
related.
And related. They're not related to me. I'm allowed to call them hot. But it's appreciated that all of you came out here. If you're not part of our Discord, go hang out on the Discord. And if you ask questions that we didn't get to today, put them in the Clinic Hours channel, and then that makes the Clinic Hours more likely to come about. But otherwise, Kate, if I'm having a problem in my game, what should I be doing? What's like the first thing that I should look at?
Use your word hole.
It's not easy, but it's often the right call.
Talk about it. Use your safety cards. Just address it.
Thanks, everybody.